This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another Sunset Safari coming to you live from Djuma in the Sabi Sands with the Duke of Djuma to start out the show. It is a cool and a little bit blustery 23 degrees Celsius, 72 degrees Fahrenheit. My name is Steve. I'm joined by Sebastian Rombi on camera, and we're out in the African wilderness. Please send through your questions and comments. Hashtag SafariLive or chat to us on the YouTube stream. Let us know how you're doing. As I said, we're with the Duke. He is not doing too much at the moment, but it is early in the day. And thanks to Herbie. Herbie came out a little bit earlier. Herbie's our Game Scout expert tracker. He came out and found him. The Duke gave us a bit of a slip this morning. And here he is, not far from Treehouse Dam, curled up in a ball. And we were out early this morning with the thermal drone looking for all sorts of things. And yes, Alana, very nice way to start the show. He does look a little bit full. I don't know if he's just curled up so much that it's looking a bit full, but the spots are a little bit bulgy there. But we used the thermal drone this morning, and it was very windy and blustery, and all the animals that you see from the drone on a blustery sort of evening like that or morning are curled up in a ball and very hard really to identify. We did spend quite a bit of time with the little Chief Hosanna from the air helping James to relocate, and he was moving. That's what made it a bit easier for us to find. But we did find a hyena, unidentified spots that then moved off before being identified, and one of them we think was indeed the little chief, who Tristan I think will be trying to follow up on this afternoon, because Seb has had dreams this afternoon, folks, of multitudes of leopard. So watch. He says a pride of leopards. So if it could happen anywhere, it could happen here in Djuma in the Sabi Sands, where, as you know, leopards are growing on trees. But for the moment, the Duke of Djuma is enjoying his daily slumber. Who knows what he'll do? Will he go drink? Will he go and hunt? You'll just have to come back and see. But in the meantime, let's go up to Jamie in the Mara.
Sometimes all you can do is sit and wait patiently, and you will be rewarded. We're talking about Steve's time with the Duke.
Well, it seems as if there's some audio technicalities up that side. Terribly sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but as you can see, the Duke has not moved in the milliseconds it took for you to return. But look at those enormous paws. I think his claws are out a little bit. Maybe he's it's not normal for the cat's claws to be out. It's possible that he might be flexing a little bit there. It doesn't look like he's flexing it a bit there. Maybe he's in a bit of a dream. Maybe he's in a dream. But cats in general have got what we call protractile claws, which means that when they extend them, they use force or they use muscle action to physically push them out. And when they pull them back in again, that's the natural reflex. That's the natural sort of position to be in. So they go out as sort of a gesture or as a muscular action, and then they protract back in. So not retractable claws. A lot of people use the word retractable. I suppose you could, loosely use that term, but the fact is that on their natural state they are inside, and they protract it out as a form of being used for defense, catching, climbing, all sorts of things. The cheetah not having those claws, having claws that are mainly used as studs for running and digging in the ground, much like the dogs to keep up a bit of speed on the ground, some purchase, sprinters spikes, or the grip you find on the bottom of your running shoes. Ever tried running on a flat pair of running shoes, an old pair? We can ask James next time he's out how his running's going, because the bottom of his shoes are wearing out quite nicely. It might be time for him to be getting a new one, and then he'll be even faster than he is at the moment. So we dread the day that happens. But anyway, Jamie seems to have sorted her audio communication issues. Let's go back up to the Mara with her and a vulture.
Okay, let's try that all again. I do apologize for being beset by gremlins. For those of you that perhaps are new to these live safaris and don't know what on earth is going on, you have just skipped across half a continent into the Masai Mara of Kenya. And in particular, you'll notice it's not looking at its most spectacular green and lush, and that's because a fire has been through this area. And we are with one of the fattest lions in the world. That wasn't where I was going with that sentence, but that was where it ended up. We are with one of the sausage tree males. Brent found them this morning around a water hole, and as you can see, they have been successful in catching a zebra. But I have to say, Jandre and I arrived just as it happened, because we switched out with Brent to keep an eye on these boys. And it's the strangest kill, full stop, I have ever seen in my entire life. The zebra walked right into the lions, and the lions were sleeping on top of one of the mounds of dirt over there. And the zebra walked right into them, and the lions sort of half-heartedly got up and chased them. And this poor zebra ran. It was far away from the lions. They were going to get away. It ran into a hole, fell down, got back up again, and then just fell over and lay on its back kicking. So I can only assume that in the sort of full speed of the moment, when it fell, it must have hurt itself really badly. I don't know if it hurt its neck or its back or something like that, but it stood up and it sort of looked very out of it and then just collapsed again. And of course the lions just moved in and immediately dispatched it. It was weird. It was hands down one of the strangest kills I have ever seen. But what that's meant is that we have been sitting with these boys all afternoon. You'll notice I'm saying boys, but one of them is missing. That's because he gave up. It got hot out here, and there is absolutely no shade around, unless you look at those two trees all the way over there. Now, he couldn't drag the zebra carcass in that direction. There's no way he could have managed that. All that distance, so he's abandoned it and he's gone to lie there. But his buddy, his coalition buddy, has no intention of leaving it to the waiting vultures, and they are waiting, and they will jump on that opportunity. Let's go and join Tristan with a very pretty bird.
Well, we had a pretty bird, but it flew away. Sad face. Right, we'll try to find it again in somewhere around here. It was a brown-hooded kingfisher, for those that wanted to know what we were looking at. As Jamie also mentioned, my name is Tristan, and on camera I've got David this afternoon, and well, we are on a mission to go and find the little chief or his older sister Thandi. So that's why we're in the Mulwati system at the moment. We're going to try and see if where James left Hosana is where he maybe decided just to have a little lie down and rest, and that's going to be the plan. Now, brown-hooded kingfisher was posing ever so beautifully, and then as birds do, is basically fly off. Oh, there it is right there. Excellent. Let's see if it'll sit still for us. Brown-hooded kingfisher, behave yourself and sit still. There we go. Isn't that pretty? Beautiful bird. It's got a bit of that sort of russet around the shoulder area and then along towards the legs. That little striped head that's brown in coloration, and then those turquoise blue wings with the red beak. They're very, very pretty birds, and this particular one is here regularly. If you drive the Mulwati system from Spaghetti Junction south towards Mamba, and 9 times out of 10 you will find it. If not here, David, can you... is it a starling that's in there? There's a very bright, beautiful bird that is bouncing around in that jackalberry. I would imagine trying to get to the jackalberry fruits, but it is a starling, yes. I wasn't 100% sure, but it's just on the right side. It's difficult to spot them, actually, unless the sun comes out. You can see there it is. Looks like a Cape Glossy starling, quite a lot of greeny tones into that. So that's what I would imagine it is. Difficult to see, though, and they kind of... a bit hidden in that thick foliated jackalberry. I'm putting David to work today with birds to start off. David, sorry about that, but it's good for you. It keeps you on your toes. Anyway, the jackalberries, I suppose, have a few fruits, as we know, and that's why many of the birds are being attracted to that area. But I was saying that we're going to try and see if we can find where James left Hosana, and hopefully we'll have some luck. Herbie's going to come give me a hand, which means that we've probably got one of the best trackers on the tracks, particularly for Hosanna, and so I'm pretty confident that Herbie will find some sort of sign and help us find Hosanna. It's always nice when Herbie's around because you just have a bit more of an expectation that she'll be successful for the afternoon. Now, Hosanna was left heading south, which is not ideal. I mean, it's always a bit of a kind of lump in the throat when he heads southwards, because you hope that he's not going to cross and get out of here, but I'm hoping that he's going to just turn and come north, much like he did the other day. He's walked a very similar route to that what Steve had him, and so I'm hoping he's just turned and then come back north on this eastern side of the Mulwati and might even show up at the dam at some point this evening. That's what I'm hoping. I'm, you know, obviously the eternal optimist, and so we're going to back that that's what's going to happen. Kristen, I'm not sure, to be honest, if he's managed to catch anything. I know he was hunting this morning quite extensively, so I actually saw him and then left James with him this morning, thanks to Steve finding it on the drone. And then he was busy hunting, so I would imagine that he was trying to find food. It's been a grey, overcast day today, and therefore great conditions for a leopard to be hunting and to be trying to find food, and so I'm hoping that he's gotten something. The thing about Hosanna is, it's quite interesting to me, is that he never looks like he's really ever completely skinny. It's somehow, it's just kind of his shape just remains the same, and so I wonder what he eats that keeps him like that. He must be eating things like scrub hairs more regularly than we actually know, and hopefully getting little things. Oh, there's a mongoose. Don't run away, mongoose. Stay where you are. There it goes. Of course it's going to run away now. Little dwarf mongoose that is disappearing down the track now. He has killed one of those before, and many leopards do, but they seldom eat them, which is quite odd. But it's not an animal that they won't shy away from. Maybe he's eating more of them than we think. Who knows? Anyway, let's carry on. Let's see. Now, we're in very close to the area where James lost him this morning. So apparently he was just up on this side and kind of moving eastwards. So I'm going to try and find that and try and find a track. And while we do that, let's send you back across to Steve, who's sitting with a rather full and happy dad.
Yes, the dad does look rather full and rather happy, and the sun is just starting to peek out from the clouds behind us. A warm front pushed in a bit of a cold front, and there was a little bit of spattering of rain this morning, but nothing of any sort of consequence. And it's starting to warm up. I think tomorrow is going to be a beautiful, beautiful day. The wind is going to blow away all of these clouds. And bless you, Seb. Sorry, I don't know why I'm thinking of Steph here. He is in camp at the moment, Mr. Stefan. But the sleepy Tingana hopefully will get up soon and do something, or maybe he'll realize that he's actually in the middle of the sunshine and might have to move to some shade. This goes to show how a cool, overcast day can actually be quite sort of relaxing to sleep in the open. You've all probably seen in our summer months how you'll never find a cat in the open, always under a tree, because of how warm it gets. But 2 days ago, it wouldn't have been the case. It's very, very hot 2 days ago. No cat sleeping in the open. Quite camouflaged indeed. He's right next to the road, only half a meter or a meter off the road, lying flat as a pancake, not far from Treehouse watering hole, where we had a few warthogs on our way here that I don't think he is even remotely interested in. As you probably all know, tomorrow morning we are going live with our final episode 5 of the Gauntlet. Very exciting, and I'm sure this gentleman here, oh, it is tomorrow night, in fact, or it's tonight, in fact. It is tonight for all of you, well, for a lot of you out there, and it is the early morning for us. It feels like night still, but it is tonight, and I'm sure that this gentleman would like to feature. He has been in every, I think he's been in every episode now, if I'm not mistaken, with his son, Hosanna, who we were able to find this morning, and Tristan is going to put in some hard work this afternoon to try and find. But as we know, Hosana likes to show up right at the last moment, and as it was in a little bit of a practice this morning, we found Hosana. We got Tristan in with 2 minutes before everything went, and then James got in about 2 minutes later. So he is a very, very good cat like that. He does pay attention to the time. He knows exactly when to come on cue, as was last week. This time, I think it was the week before actually, I'm in a little bit of a bubble. We went out looking for, what did you see? He heard a noise. His cat senses are alert, and they're back down again. There's a few birds calling, nothing of interest. A couple sunbirds. Savannah, you'd probably regard a leopard at about the age of 4 as being mature, a male. A female is probably a little bit less, maybe 3 even, but they still grow a little bit. But you'd say between the ages of 4 and 5 they are fully mature, and then they still come of age, some of them, with experience. You don't necessarily mean that a male is as mature as he's going to be. He's still got a lot of scraps and experience to gain from the age of 4 to 5, and some of them might only become dominant at 7, 6, 8. All depends really on his sort of way of getting things done. And as we know, Tingana is here. He's approaching 13, so he's in his 12th, 13th year now, and he's only been in the area for what, 3-4 years, eh, Seb? Am I right? So, which means he must have been a dominant male somewhere else, or it took him a very long time to sort of get to that stage. No doubt, lots of scraps and fighting to get there, and at the moment there's not too much fighting going on in the old Duke. Lots of calling and demarcating, and we're having some nice discussions last night, Tristan and myself, about how Hosana's feeling very comfortable within the territorial boundaries of the Duke, who is very forthcoming of his oldest son, or his young son, should I say, and the behavior that they are showing for each other is quite something to behold. So I think Hosana feels quite safe within the boundaries of the demarcated territory of his father. And all it costs is a little bit of a meal from time to time. Sometimes more than just a meal, a little meal, the entire animal. But he doesn't look like he's going anywhere just yet. But how are you getting there, Seb? I'm in your shadow, so how's that sun warming up your back?
It's nice.
Seb's enjoying the sunshine. He's still got a jersey on, so by the time Seb removes his jersey, it will probably be the time that Tingana decides he's a little bit too warm to be still sitting in the sunshine. But it is a cool afternoon. The wind is completely gone now. There was quite a lot of wind on our way through here. Nice breeze. Classical autumn winter, or autumn weather, should I say. The bringing of spring, coming of spring. And it is going to be a beautiful day, as I said. The clouds are clearing and the wind has dropped, but I am pretty sure that all the way up in the Masai Mara the weather is not as peachy as it is down here. Let's go over to Scott Dyson and see how he's doing.
Well, happy that you're having a great afternoon weather-wise, Steve. As you can tell, not quite the same here in the Masai Mara. We've just dropped this front flap and lifted up the windscreen because we've got a little bit of rain. My name is Scott. I'm teamed up with Archie, aka Mr. Malowa, and we are headed off in search of lions. So we're going to work the area in and around the Salt Lick, which I'm told is filled with wildebeest. Jamie's been out all day. I'm told you've spent a little bit of time with her already, and she suggested I head off there and do some fishing, see what we catch. So that is the plan. If we look over to the left, there's a storm that's kind of approaching us, so that's why I'm driving as quickly as I can to try and get around the thick of it. It seems to be making its way this way, and it looks like we are just going to make it without catching anything too serious, which is marvelous news. We've got about probably 15 or 20 minutes to go until we get into the area that we are hoping to find some lions. It sounded like Jamie had an incredibly interesting scene with that zebra that the sausage tree males caught earlier on today. I'm not sure how much he told you about that, but it certainly was an interesting story. If she hasn't told you yet, when you hop back on her vehicle, you should ask her. Failing that, you may find David on her vehicle because he is relieving her, as she may have told you. David has kindly put his hand up to spend the night out sitting with lions to hand over to Brent for tomorrow's final TV show. So that's obviously very exciting news for all of us, and we urge all of you to let as many people and friends as you know to tune in and watch the finale of the Gauntlet tomorrow morning. Well, tomorrow night for some of you. Very good. We're going to send you back to Tristan, who is still on the search for Hosanna.
We are indeed, Scotty D, and we're narrowing the search quickly. That's why I like working with Herbie, because it's quite an efficient operation when he's around. So he's on my southern side at the moment. He's got tracks for Hosanna now going towards a dry pan off this little loop road that comes off Mamba. I've checked on the northern side of Mamba, which means he hasn't come out this way. He's checked on the southern side of that pan, which means he hasn't crossed out that way. So now the only place to check is the Mulwati. If he hasn't crossed the Mulwati again, then he's lying between basically where Herbie and I are, somewhere in this little block, and that should make it very easy because the area that we're talking about is quite small. So we've managed to kind of narrow it down quite quickly, and so hopefully we should be able to catch him fairly shortly. I'm going to try and hedge a bet that he's maybe down in the Mulwati having a little sleep under a bush somewhere. That's what I'm hoping, and that I'm hoping that he kind of has found himself a nice shady spot, that he's just lying close to the sand, that we'll be able to find him. I remember this time last year, between him and Tumba, the Mulwati was just an absolute fest for our leopards. So I'm just listening to Herbie now. So now Herbie's telling me that he's cutting straight west towards the Mulwati system, which is good. Let's go and just double check there. Alright, copy that. Thanks, Herbs. I'm about to drop back into the Mulwati. I'm going to head south, just double check that he hasn't crossed over here. So this is exactly how it's done when you've got multiple people together. Just want to check that I didn't miss tracks here on this big game path. There's a nice prominent game path that comes up in this section, which is where James was off-roading. I can see his off-road tracks. So I just want to double check and make sure that I didn't miss anything. No, I think we're all good. So this is when you're tracking, this is a lot of kind of the work that you would do, is to try and double check big pathways, because leopards in particular are animals that follow paths quite regularly. I mean, they do cut off from time to time, particularly if they're stalking, but for the most part they'll try and follow a path that runs in a certain direction. It makes probably one of the sort of components of leopard tracking that makes it go from near impossible to something that is doable. And so you've just got to kind of check those paths, because at some point one of the leopards will utilize it. Oh, there's our little mongoose who's still messing around here. Well, while we kind of pass by and see if we can find his tracks coming out on this side of the riverbed, let's send you back across to Steve and see if Tingana is still having a big nap.
Well, the news is currently that Sebastian has taken off his jersey. So we are in the countdown for how many seconds or minutes it's going to take. And now the breeze have just picked up as I spoke to cool him down again. Now, Seb, you feel like you could put your jersey back on?
No, it's still
no.
alright.
Okay, Seb's still good with his jersey off. So we're hoping in the next minute or two the Duke is going to stand up and find some shade. Lauren, that's a great question. I would think it's something we've been discussing a lot lately, and whether he's allowing him or not, it's very hard to know what exactly is going on. He is most certainly benefiting from Hosanna's kills. He's been stealing quite a few of them. We haven't actually found Tingana with his own meat for some time that we found him killing. I think he's quite secretive in that regard, but he's tolerating his son because his son hasn't quite developed the testosterone or the bulk yet to form any sort of challenge. It is his progeny, so he's quite happy, I suppose, to have him around. And having a nice chat with Graham Wallington last night, he said Tingana's always been a very good father, because we were chatting about how he was being very close and loving with Kalamba the other day.
well, as loving as a leopard male can be. And it just goes to show that I think he does recognize these individuals and he tolerates them, and he knows he's benefiting having Hassan nearby, but as soon as Hassan steps out of line or starts doing something he shouldn't be doing, I think he will rain down the hammer on him. But at the moment, he's winning out of the situation, and at the same time, so is the little chief. Okay, we got a movement there. There was a movement in the head. But we're going to give it one more segment, I suppose, and if he doesn't move, well, we're going to go off and see if we can find greater things. But we will come back. We know exactly where he is, and there's only so many he can hide. Malaika, yes, I've seen leopards and lions do exactly what domestic cats and dogs do by eating grass. And what it does is it causes them to, as you say, to vomit and to throw up. And it's because cats invariably, they groom themselves. They get a lot of fur inside the belly. They're not able to digest that fur. Also, lions and leopards get a lot of fur in the belly from the food that they eat. Leopards are quite delicate. They do pluck a lot of the fur off of the animals, but they do still get a lot in. Lions will get bone shards as well as fur in because they just eat at a ravenous pace in the face of competition. But both of them like to then, I don't know if they like to do it, but both lions and leopards will then eat grass. I've seen it, and it makes them vomit. And it's not the most fascinating thing to witness if you have got a weak stomach, but it does cause them to regurgitate the enormous fur ball, which every now and again is quite interesting to sort of have a look at because you can see certain elements in there, especially in lions. Sometimes you find hooves and proper enormous bones that you'd like, that no chance of those going through the digestive tract. But it's interesting to find these little tracks and signs that we find out in the African wilderness. We love to smell leopard urine and we love to sift through their vomit. How interesting a job do we have? I know it sounds quite strange. We are quite strange, in fact. You have to be a little bit mad to work out here. Or maybe the job makes you a bit mad, Seb. What do you reckon?
Bush fever.
Bush fever. Disney Girl, I've never seen it live, leopards jump onto a vehicle, but there was a video a few years ago in the Kruger Park, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I forget the date, everything sort of merges into one, where a leopard was quite injured, was quite sick, should I say, in the Kruger National Park, and they've got a video of it coming and trying to jump up on the driver's arm, and it actually tried to jump in, and he grabbed it and pushed it down and managed to drive away from it and then tried to jump on the bonnet. So that leopard ended up having to be shot and put down, and they found out after an autopsy that it wasn't well. So a normally healthy, 100% well leopard would not do that. They got too much of a fear of man to do that. And if a leopard gets too close to a vehicle, I'll make sure, I don't know what I'd do with regards to pushing it away, but I would definitely shout and make some sort of noise so that it realizes that jumping on the car is not good. And people that encourage cheaters to jump on their car are really not doing that cheater any favors. I must tell you that. Not doing it any favors, because those are still wild animals. And if you had a leopard on your vehicle, well, that is a terrifying thing to behold, because they've got incredibly sharp claws, and if they start getting too inquisitive and actually climbing in the vehicle, and if they get on top, they can start seeing the people's legs and start making out the shapes of people, and they just start basically understanding that there's this box of food driving around. There's also places in there's parks I've heard of lions climbing on the roofs of cars. You shouldn't allow that stuff to happen. Really shouldn't allow it to happen. I've had many lions come quite close to my car and try to sniff it. It's generally youngsters. You turn the car on or you hit the door a little bit and you make them realize that that's a no-no, and they don't do it again. Adults don't do it, but if they learn it from a young age as a cub, well, then that behavior will be practiced and they'll start doing it. And having a 300-pound, 500-pound animal climbing onto your roof, well, your panel beater or your insurance is probably not going to cover that. What happened to your roof, sir? Well, a lion sat on my roof. Do you think any insurance company would cover that, Seb? Possibly.
Maybe in South Africa.
Maybe in South Africa, yeah. Maybe in South Africa. But, yeah, for a naturally wildlife leopard, lion, I don't think that will happen. It happens in places where the animals get to see a lot of vehicles, a lot of people, potentially are captive reared, captive fed, and they start associating those vehicles with food. And that is a very dangerous thing. Very, very dangerous thing, in my opinion. And Tingana sees us a box and doesn't really even look at us. He basically just walks around. We're just a moving tree, although he's never tried to climb us, so we're not a tree. We're just this smelly petrol rubber green box with funny noises inside that chatter away and answer questions, speak a language they have no idea about. Although I do know that these leopards do enjoy our voices, the nice soothing sound. I mean, as I'm talking, he just stays in slumber, doesn't he? If it was annoying, he would be awake and up and annoyed, but he is in dreamland. Dreamland. Okay, I just need to speak on the radio real quick. Okay, he's busy chatting still, so we can continue. His belly does look quite full, doesn't he? Don't know what he's eaten. We'd have to investigate his scat at a later stage, or a fur ball, to find out what fur he has ingested. Well, we're probably going to move off from the Duke in a moment or two due to his extremely exciting behavior, but we will come right back. In the meantime, let's go and see if Mr. Tristan Dix has had any luck finding the little chief.
Not just yet. We're still just trying to figure it all out and make 100% sure. I've checked where I thought he was going to cross out of. Hang on. Sorry, did I miss these just now? I might have. I just want to see if these are leopard tracks that I'm seeing, or if it's just a whole bunch of antelope that are all walking together. It just looks like antelopes that are walking here. So no sign of Hosana's track in there. The one problem with the Mulwati system and tracking in the afternoon. In the morning, not so bad, but in the afternoon, it becomes a lot more tricky because you get a lot of Nyala and Impala that crisscross this, and Kudu. And so they use all the big game paths, much like a leopard would. And so if a leopard's walked there during the early part of the morning, by the afternoon, a lot of the time the tracks are actually quite obliterated by the various different animals. Now, those are for baboons, so we're not looking for those. I wonder where Hosana is. Herbie's busy on foot now, so he's not answering the radio as to which way the track went from his last position, which was pretty much in line with where I am right now. And so I'm just trying to double check as we go. If there's nothing coming out here, then he must be lying somewhere close by on our left-hand side. I did just a little quick kind of tour through the thickets on my left-hand side here, which was an area that a lot of you might remember. Tumba spent a lot of time last year, these little thickets on my left, and so I was hoping that maybe he was just lying up somewhere inside here, but so far I haven't seen anything just yet. Anyway, we'll keep looking, and we're going to keep trying and seeing what is around, and while we do that, let's send you back across to David in the Mara, who is, well, with the animal that makes the Mara, a famous reserve.
Hello everyone, and Jumbo everybody, and good luck on Hosana. I know Hosana is one of the most colorful leopards that you see in Juma, but we got something here that Hosana might want to eat when he gets hungry. And my name is David, as always, and with me today, Big James. Good afternoon, sir. That is the biggest smile I've seen in James for a long time. James loves his job. He never smiles, but he does his job thoroughly and very well. Remember, this is a very interactive safari we are doing. You can always get hold of us, chat to us. As you wish to ask us any questions, we'll try to answer your questions. Any comments you may want to share with us, please share with us. And you can also ask me, why are those wildebeest walking on a single file? Why are they walking in one line? And I might be trying to get an answer. I'm sure someone out there would be wanting or might be having that question, why do the wildebeest walk on a single file or walk in one line? I'm not sure I have an answer for that. I might give you my only theory that I have, and I say they're very clever animals, if that will make any sense to anybody, and they'll make sure just just make sure there's someone ahead of you and someone behind you. You can see in that tree there, James, can you pan a little bit to those vultures there? There's that big tree there. I'm sure James is doing the best he can. And all what you see there, those are not flowers, but they're big birds that we call vultures. And seeing vultures there would mean there might, or there is definitely a kill not very far from where we are. And if a kill is there, there are some killers, which most likely are lions for a fact. So what the wildebeest will do, they'll agree. You walk and you make sure there's someone behind you and there's someone in front of you. So if the lions come, they don't get you. They'll get the person in front or the one behind you. That's just my theory. I cannot say for a fact, where in general, wildebeest or the wildebeest walk on a single file. Christian, I'll tell you my own judgment or feeling, because migration got here very late, Christian. I think it might stay longer. For the last 3 days, what you have seen are clouds building up, and very thick clouds, and we have been seeing walls of rain falling. And because we had some huge fires here the last few months, what should happen is the tall grass that was not very nutritious was burnt down. And if the rains will keep falling, from yesterday we've been seeing some good amount of rains coming, that will translate to some very fresh shoot of grass coming up. And that's exactly what the wildebeest will be looking for. And if that happens, they will stay. Because to me, the wildebeest will always migrate for two reasons. Number one, when they go to drop their young ones in Tanzania, in the game park or national park called Serengeti, it's just the east of Serengeti and west of another conservation area called Ngorongoro in Tanzania. So that particular time in the month of February, the first week and the second week, or the second week and the third week, Christine, they'll always go there and give birth. And then because they'll have so many babies in that period, sometimes I'm talking about 600,000 babies in a very short time, they deplete all the grass, all anything that is nutritious there, and short plants that are rich in phosphorus and calcium. And once they deplete that kind of food, they need to look for better food. And that's why they come to the north, to the Masai Mara, and specifically here in the Mara Triangle. So just once I would say it came late, chances are it will be late for them to leave. And they might stick here with us a few more weeks than normal. Migration is a continuous circle. They don't start, they don't end. They only stop for those 2 weeks, as I said earlier, just to bring the babies down. Otherwise, they're always on the move. And roughly, when you look on that movement of the migration, to me, it's more of a clockwise movement. So you notice as they're eating, they're going further down, not eating the tall grass, which is not of much nutritious. When the wildebeest migrate or when they move, they do not move alone. They also move together with zebras. And I think someone got some zebra somewhere.
Terribly sorry about the communication errors coming out of the Mara this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. But you're back with us live down in Djuma. We have decided to move on from the Duke of Djuma due to the fact that he's not doing too much. Do a little bit of a loop around, see if we can find anything else, and then we'll go back to him for the end, towards the end of the show, see what he's up to. I know there was a vehicle on the way there. Driving up to leopards, what a marvelous name. Where Tumba is, I believe he's in the west. So Arathusa through to Londolozi, he's been kind of moving up and down in that area. I know Tristan keeps a very close sort of call on where Tumba's going. He might be able to tell you exactly, but He spent some time down in Londolozi, Malamala, some interaction with the Anderson male who seemed like he lost an eye, but it's all come back again. He's going to have a very nice sort of wound. He's a big male from down that side, and Malamala and Koro. So he doesn't really, like Hosana, he's just kind of moving. He's a bit of a free mover. He hasn't sort of decided to stick around anywhere, so it seems, for too long, and he keeps moving. But such a beautiful leopard. Wouldn't it be marvelous if he just materialized tomorrow for the show? Seb, wouldn't that be? That might add to Seb's pride of leopards that he's talking about. And, well, if you want leopards, you need to be able to provide them with the right sort of food. And we're going to see if we can show you this animal that's just there behind the branch. As soon as I switch off, it's going to run away. 3, 2, 1. And that is the favorite food, it seems, for our many leopards in the area. And the only way to successfully have a pride, Sebastian, would be to have lots and lots of deka. Well, there's no such thing as a pride of leopards, everybody, but Seb had a dream, and wouldn't it be marvelous if that materialized? Whoopsie, there was one that just jumped from behind. This is a magic trick. The dakas are prolific in these areas. They're mixed feeders. Some people even refer to them as being omnivores. They've been known to feed on the eggs and chicks of birds on the ground, nesting birds. I've never seen it, but I have read about it. How interesting is that? So, eat and be eaten is the motto of the daka, who we often find eating the jackalberry fruits, only to be found the following day in the jackalberry itself being eaten by a leopard. That is the story of the African wilderness and the story of the little daka. But anyway, we're going to keep moving on. Keep moving on, see what we can come up with. We're going to maybe see if we can get on the tracks of Tundi. There were some tracks this morning very close to where we're doing our drone tests, but good news, it sounds like Scott is back in the hearing range. Let's go back up to him with his topi.
Hello everyone, sorry I didn't speak to you last time you jumped on board. I'd forgot to change radio repeaters. I've got into an area where the original radio repeater that I was on does no longer work. What a beautiful scene this is. However, we are trapped because we cannot drive anywhere in this rain. So for now we're just kind of staying put. Well, I lie, we can drive around, but that means we can't show you anything because we'll have all the flaps down. At the moment we've got kind of just one side open and the prevailing wind is blowing into all the closed sides. Look at all these zebra. Hundreds of them. Absolutely awesome. And I'm told that today, just like yesterday and the last few days this week, the migration continues to pour into Kenya. I'm told in and around the Lookout Hill crossings, which is in the kind of southern portion of the Mara Triangle, there was a huge amount of wildebeest this morning. Not sure if there have been any crossings, it's been a bit quiet, but there definitely are lots more of these animals coming in, which is exciting stuff. Gloomy clouds, as you can see. We've got this flap down, the front flap, as well as the side flap, and you can see the wind is blowing into us over here, which means the rain is blowing into that. Very good. We're going to stay put for a while. I'm thinking we can actually maybe start moving in the next few minutes. I'm just going to give it a few more moments to make sure we don't get caught in anything too serious, and in the meantime we're going to send you across to David, who is with some hungry lions.
Yes, Scott, you have to be very careful. We have seen the last few days the storm falling and falling, and you've been thinking the sky is coming down. But again, with all the migration going on, we are very happy to be out here. And this is one of the youngsters of the two lions that have brought down this zebra. And I'm sure you had seen it earlier. So the one on the left just came in now and she sat there. But this is the one, I'm sure you watched it earlier with Jamie. I sometimes wonder what's the understanding between, say, 2 males or 3 males. This one has been guarding this zebra for quite some time, since morning, and the other one, from my own estimate, was about, very good, James, if you may go there, this one has been about 1 kilometer or so away, or maybe 800 meters from this. Very good. So he just came, walked, and he sat right there. So my question is, why is he not going closer? or what's the deal between the two of them. And again, as I said earlier, please feel free to ask us any questions on #SafariLive. You can keep tweeting, and also you can send us your comments. Sinak, you're asking about cats choking, and it's very unusual for them to get choked. What I've seen before, they might get something, you know, like say on their throat, and we have seen them cough, and they cough very big. What I know lions will do most of the times, they'll always sneeze, but I can tell you I haven't seen any cat getting choked. But I've always seen, once they eat sometimes so much meat, depending on how hungry they are, there's sometimes, if the food is limited or the pride is so big, they might want to eat very quickly, and in the process eat part of the skin and part of the hide as you go back to the lions, and they might swallow part of the fur in the body, and it builds up to something like a ball, which they always try and vomit and bring it out. And if they don't do it very well, that time it might choke them. And then you've seen them trying, like, if it doesn't come out nicely, we have seen once in a while the cats eating grass, and more so lions and leopards, to get whatever it is they need to get out. Occasionally, though it's quite rare, we have seen like cats and more so lions and leopards again vomiting something very small, and if maybe they have an indigestion or some unusual, you know, imbalance in their tummies, they'll always, just like human beings, when you feel you want to throw up, we have seen them eating pieces of grass, and that helps them to, you know, just vomit whatever is bothering them. See how the wind is picking up now, and you can see the grass is being blown together with that beautiful mane, which I would say is more blonde comparing to the other one, which is a little darker. And we might be moving from a mammal now to all the way in South Africa to a reptile with Tristan.
Well, we do have a reptile, a very camouflaged reptile, that is busy doing a bit of sun tanning this afternoon. It is a massive rock monitor lizard. We don't see the rock monitors all that often, mostly the Nile monitor lizards. And this guy is obviously been living in this termite mound and has now decided it is time to have a bit of a sunbathe and stick half its body out. It's busy looking at us at the moment just to check what's going on. Now, this monitor lizard, you'll see, is slightly different to a lot of the monitors that we've been seeing over the past few months. It's got a very, very blunt nose in comparison to the Nile monitors that have that sharp, pointy nose. You'll also see the coloration of this individual is more muted. It's a grey, stony kind of color as opposed to that more vibrant yellowy green color that you see on the Nile monitor or water monitor that we also get around. Now, these guys will spend most of their time away from water. They don't have to go to water nearly as much as the others, and they use things like termite mounds and trees as places of refuge and also nesting sites, and then they'll come out of them and they sun themselves. And particularly on a cold day like today, this fellow would have been fairly cold up until about an hour ago when the sun started to come out for the first time, and it's now just crawled its way out, going to heat up that body. But remember, it's a cold-blooded animal, so it needs the sun's rays in order to heat it up to be able to be active enough to go and forage for food, as well as just to kickstart that metabolism a little bit. But you'll see that these guys get big. They get bulky and big. They got massive heads that they go after to try and find all kinds of different food items. You often actually even see these guys feeding on carrion, which is quite interesting. Michelle, he does look big. I would estimate his size, just this portion that we're seeing, probably to be around 45 centimeters from the tip of his nose to where it disappears into the mound there. So, I mean, that's a fairly large creature. The tail will extend probably double that, so we can't even see his back legs yet. So I would estimate that this guy is well over a meter in length and probably even closer to 1.5 meters in total in terms of the size of him if you had to take him out with the tail as well. So it would be a very, very big individual, and I'm not sure if he'll move if we got any closer, but we can see him so nicely that I really don't want to interrupt his sunbathing. It must be nice to be out there and just catching some rays if you're a cold-blooded animal. I imagine it would feel very good to slowly start to warm up, and you can see it's kind of paying attention to us. So they do have incredible senses, these lizards. They have, ability to obviously flick their tongue out and taste particles, essentially, on the air, which helps them detect things. But they're also able to smell very well, and they have fairly decent eyesight. If you move around there, this guy will puff up quite quickly and then probably scuttle into that mound for safety. But he's really got himself a perfect spot. Although I feel like if he ate too much, he'd be too fat to actually get back inside that particular hole. So, Cull 6, this particular mound won't have termites in it. So, if you'll find if a termite mound was active, he would not be in there because, yes, the termites would get highly irritated and attack him at every opportunity they can get. So, this particular mound probably no longer active, and that's why he can form a little hole for himself in there and live inside. When there's termites in these kind of places, you'll very seldom find lizards and snakes and even dwarf mongoose living inside, because the termites will just attack them at every available option to try and kind of get them out, because they would destroy eggs and they would destroy all kinds of things, as well as dig up the mound itself to make it big enough for them to fit in. But it almost looks like he's been wedged in there, don't you think? I think it's quite funny. It's kind of almost vertical, and it's as though somebody stuffed him in there and he's now gotten stuck and needs to go on a bit of a diet in order to get himself out. Of course, that's not the case. It just looks very funny that it's there. Very, very cool. Safari girl for sure, especially leopards. They go after monitors quite regularly. It's a fairly big meal, but it's also not without its own perils. A monitor lizard's got a serious tail on it that can whip and can hurt you if you get hit by it. Also a nasty set of jaws that if they latch on, they typically don't let go. But their biggest thing is that they'll stay close to places like this where they can get away. And so even though leopards will go after them, a lot of the time they can escape by getting into here. But you do find leopards attacking these guys very regularly and eating them. I've seen, well, we know Hosana, Shongile, Tingana, pretty much every leopard I've ever seen at some point has had a monitor lizard as a meal, so they are attacked quite a lot. Lions, not so much. I mean, I have seen it, but it's not nearly as much, and that's because a pride of lions and a monitor lizard like that is going to be pretty useless. It will be a snack for one lion, and that's it. So it's something that they don't go after nearly as much as what a leopard would, but leopards definitely will eat these guys fairly regularly, as well as many different birds of prey. So martial eagles will go after these guys very, very regularly. Crowned eagles, if they can find them. That's pretty much the two that mostly go after them. Black eagle every now and then, if they can find them up on the mountains, you might find they go after them as well. But very cool. Nice sight. It was just kind of caught my eye. It's not something that you'd see very easily, but been scanning all the termite mounds anyway, just to see if little Hosana is perched up on the termite mounds, and that was a very nice surprise to see. Well, I think so anyway. David, did you enjoy that? Excellent. David loved it. Right, now talking about David, there's another David, but not sitting on the back of my vehicle. He's sitting quite far north of me, inside the Masai Mara, and, well, he sounds like he's having a rollicking afternoon with all kinds of furry animals.
Now, the one lion just moved about 3 meters away from the kill, or from the what used to be a zebra. And when you would ask a Spanish, how do you say that? They'll say, que era zebra, era, E-R-A, which means what used to be a zebra. You can see what it is. So just move 2 or 3 meters away, but right behind him is a vulture. We got different species of vultures here, and this particular one is the hooded vulture. All right, very good, James. This is the hooded vulture. And I'm trying to imagine she's wondering at what point will these two boys leave this kill for them to take over. There's always there's a hierarchy that is always followed from the actual killers, who of course do the good job. But if the hyenas were here, to me, the hyenas would be next in the pecking order, and then last, or the vultures will always come at distance 3. But if there could be some jackals, is always balanced between jackals and vultures. Now, we've got a couple of vultures here, and that was a hooded vulture, and I think this is another hooded vulture. Young one. Yes, young one. They have, we haven't been seeing so many of them. The numbers have been going down. I do not know why. And let's find out if Tristan may be having a pig.
I do have a pig, David. I have got 2 pigs, actually. And they are, well, watching me very, very carefully and not very sure about our presence at all, which is no surprise. Generally, the warthogs are these guys that just really kind of don't want to know anything about us. They typically run away, and so quite nice actually to see them standing still for a little bit. They were both sleeping, so maybe they're just waking up before they're going to turn tail and run. But the presence of these 2 guys sleeping and fairly relaxed means that Hosana has not quite made it this far, and so I'm not sure where he is. Now, Herbie's telling me that he reckons the tracks that he's following now are for Tingana, not for Hosana, so that's going to complicate things slightly. It means that we haven't quite gotten onto Hosana's tracks just yet, so we're going to have to start a bit more at square one, and hopefully we'll find out where he walks. But it looks like 2 females that have been spending some time together. You can see the camouflage on the one at the back. They really do blend in incredibly well. You'd think that a warthog would stand out, but once they get behind grass, that grey coloration, particularly now in winter when we've got a lot of dead trees, makes it very difficult to actually see them. And you can see they're kind of hesitant to turn their back. And as they go, you'll also notice how the mane on their back of their necks starts to blend quite well with the grass. It starts to almost look very grass-like. You see that? And there we go. It breaks up the outline a little bit, and off they go into the thickets, and becomes a lot harder to actually see them. Very cool, though. It's, like I said, not often we get them on camera for this long. They normally just bolt off, and that's the end of it. We don't really get to see them. So it's been a bit of a treat to see them and to actually watch them kind of meander off rather than run off. And I believe a lot of you are saying that we haven't seen them for so long. It's true. We really haven't had them for very long at all. It's kind of feels like they just disappear before we can show them to you. They're around a lot. We see them a lot on drive, funny enough, but very seldom do we get them on camera because they normally turn tail and run, and we just, until by the time we actually kind of cut between the feeds, it's gone, and that's the end of that. But there you go. You can see it's kind of disappearing off into the thickets now and going away from us. So we'll leave them be and carry on our search for little Hosana now and see where he's gone. I'm hoping that he is somewhere close by. I'm a bit concerned now because if they don't have his tracks, it means that he's either gone south, and that's not a good sign at all, or he's, just lying up somewhere there. So I'm just going to have to try and see what we can find. Anyway, let's send you back across to David, who's obviously still with his lions. I wonder what they'll be up to next.
Well, when the rains get bigger, because of the equipment we'll always have in our trucks, we'll always, just switch down or power down to avoid lightning damaging the equipment. And what James is trying to show you, James was making a joke earlier, as much as they call him Big James. He likes showing you viewers big things, big storms, big clouds, and what he's showing you is a big cloud explaining why maybe it's got just power down. Look at that wall of rain. But it's quite a distance from where we are. That's exactly where Scott is, but we are on the other end of the Mara. I'm sure you know Mara is so huge. The Mara Triangle is huge. So Scott is on the escarpment of the Olololo escarpment. That's on the western side, and we are on the other side. Look at that wall again. Paula, I highly doubt. What I've seen lions do, if the vultures try to sneak, because once in a while they've been known to be sneaky, to the kill of the lions, I have seen a lioness give a whack, a big slap to a vulture. And I'm talking about big vulture. We got a few different types of vultures. We got the white-backed vulture, we got the root-pulse griffon vulture. The one we just saw earlier was the hooded vulture. There's one that's called the Nubian vulture, and those ones are very big by any standard. But I've seen a lioness give a slap to a vulture and it died. But I highly doubt they would eat them. I haven't seen that, but I highly doubt they would want to eat them. I'm going to show you how a lappet-faced vulture looks like. And that's a hooded vulture. That's fully grown one there. It's a mature, fully grown hooded vulture. And James, if you pan to the right in that direction there, the direction I'm pointing, I'll show you a similar species to that vulture, but I think that is an immature one. Very good right there. There's two also my guess is they are also hooded vultures, but they're immature. So the mature one have the white head and that red, and you might confuse the immature hooded vultures to the Egyptian vultures, but those are just youngsters there. So I want to show you of the vultures that we got here. That's the largest in size. We got about 7 different vultures, or what you call 7 true vultures in East Africa, and I want to show you the largest of them all. And to get a lioness to give a slap, how is that, James? That's what we call the lappet-faced vulture. Thank you very much. And you can see, to me, they are always very serious vultures. You can see how well it looked, built, and the hooked beak, all red. That's why they call them the lappet face, the red head there, as you can see there. And just to see a lioness giving this guy a slap to die, it must be a big whack. So I'd highly doubt, they would just, eat them. But just hit them, kill them, and they will stop being or irritating to the lions. Well, back to our lions again, but we need to show you a marabou stock here. James, you see this marabou stock in front of us here, 12 o'clock. There's a marabou stock there, which is, I think, feeling a bit cold. They do scavenge a lot, and you can tell it's pretty chilly for this guy. Just some final control says that's very cool. It's a bit cold now. I don't know what the temperature should be, but you can see she's quite tucked in, and she is alone. Not seeing other sort of similar species around. You see the long beak they got. And if I would look at the pecking order here, I would say the vultures will come in first once the lions leave, before the marabou stock comes in. Ideally, she'll be outnumbered, and that's why she doesn't stand a very good chance. And you can see the legs looking a bit white, not because they got white legs, but when they drop the poop, it will always like slide on their legs, and I guess that helps to cool them off. So in that angle, should they do their number 2 business, you'll get it just, dripping over their legs and making them look white. And that helps to keep them cool being out here in Africa. Paula, great comment. I mean, I would want to keep her company, Paula, because she's all alone there. And since I got here, she has been alone. Very good to tuck your head up and just show the world you are there. You could be lonely, but you're big and you can do stuff. And yeah, I mean, Paula, she looks a bit lonely. I do not know where the other species are, but I'm sure maybe at one point they might swing around and keep her company. And Steve could be having a feathered friend.
We had a bird, sorry folks, we had a long-tailed or a magpie shrike that just jumped into the small breeze and took off after its counterpart and didn't land anywhere where we could refilm it, so terribly sorry about that. So we have moved a little bit sort of more north and west from our previous location and driving around in uncharted areas. No one that I know of went in this area this morning, so there were sort of tracks of Tanya coming out of this drainage system, if we can show the drainage system there, coming out of that drainage system towards Vuyatela Pan. She left some tracks and a very nice ball of poo on the path, and they were just her. It was on her own. So Tristan's assuming that it's possible, because she hadn't eaten the day before for 2 days, it's possible that she's maybe on some meat and she has gone off to try and find her little youngster, having a drink, and then bringing her youngster back to the kill. And there's it. Trying to get it on the monitor. There is a beautiful bird up there. There's a beautiful bird. I can't quite make him out though. Can't quite get him. He's up top left. Middle of the screen now. A little bit down. Middle down. James, I've never seen a murmuration of starlings in South Africa, but you do get sort of types of patterns that the quilias perform when they fly through the sky, but it's by no means the murmurations that you see in Europe and in Scotland, for example, with those starlings that move like that. But you do see the quailias moving in this sort of musical wave notation across the sky. But I've never seen that really amazing sort of flock that the murmurations do up in Scotland. I've seen it before with my own two eyes. It's absolutely spectacular. If you've never seen murmurations of starlings before, you should have a look. We don't get anything quite like that here, but with the quailias you get 100,000 birds, maybe 1 million birds flying past you from breeding sites to feeding sites in the morning and the afternoon. It's always around sunset. It's absolutely spectacular. I've seen it a number of times in my life and it never gets old. It never ever gets old. But they generally nest in quite sort of stunted knobthorny type of vegetation where there's nice nesting. The soils are quite rich in nutrients, so there's enormous amounts of seeds are produced because the quailias are seed eaters. So they like to live in areas, well, breed in areas where they get access to good food, and they are the farmer's pest. Farmers do not like them because you can imagine if you're growing seed for a living and you get 1 million birds come and land on your crops, well, yeah, you can do the math. So they're not very well liked by farmers, but they were here long before the farmers were. So it's one of those sort of human-wildlife conflicts on a grand scale. Largest flocking birds in the world, apparently. Oh. Whose track is that? Okay, well, there's a very nice lion track. A couple of lion tracks here. I wonder who they might be. But we're going to go over to Tristan and see if he has potentially seen a murmuration of starlings.
I have seen a murmuration of starlings, not here in Djuma or the Sabi Sands, but in Europe. You get huge murmurations of starlings, particularly in Italy, in Rome. You get some crazy ones up there, which is quite cool. And then, I mean, in murmurations here in South Africa, I've seen the quailias a few times. I mean, Steve will know from, if he remembers his days on Singita Labombo, where the murmurations used to come through from the nesting sites and then come through the drainage lines. It was absolutely amazing to watch them there. So get murmurations of quailias. We've had them here a little bit, not major ones. Used to see them a bit on Cheetah Plains. We had some around Treehouse Dam once. Remember when they were all coming down to drink? That was quite cool. We had all the quailias like in and out drinking. I mean, it wasn't a big flock by any stretch of the imagination in comparison to a lot of the flocks that occur in Africa, but it was still very cool to witness. And we don't really have the right habitat for huge big flocks of quailias. You'll find in other parts of South Africa, if you go to the central parts of the Kruger, very close to Singita Labombo, there are just massive tracts of areas where there's huge amounts of birds. Now I'm going to I see James's tracks here, so we can't find any further signs of Hosanna. Herbie says he can't see anything. He can only find the tracks that I saw in the Mulwati that are the ones that led us to this point where James lost him. So I want to just go on to James's tracks now and just think maybe that Hosanna just lay down, and that's why James lost him, is he might have laid down in a thicket. So I want to just drive on these tracks and just double check that he hasn't kind of just sat up somewhere and is just lying down and taking it very easy. There should be quite a convenient little pathway through here that goes towards where I am thinking he might show up. But it just seems as though he's kind of doing his own thing, old Hosanna, and I suppose that's fair enough. He's a busy boy and he's got lots to kind of go and investigate and look for, and I think he's starting to get quite hungry. So he was, hunting a lot yesterday evening, this morning. So maybe and just maybe he's really on the kind of scope for food. All right, now this is where I think he would have gone, is into this drainage section. So I'm going to try and kind of just work this drainage, have a little look, walk about here maybe. And while I do that, let's send you back across to Scott, who's broken shelter from the storm but has some animals that are still sitting getting wet.
Well, happy hunting, Tristan. As you can see, we have got ourselves a serious rainstorm here in the Mara, and the zebra is not looking very happy at the moment. But what I can assure you is that the benefits that this rain will bring the zebra in the form of fresh green grass is going to be something that I look forward to. I actually sadly won't be able to share the turning of this grass going really green in this area that's been burnt, and the reason being is that I'm about to go and leave, so this is the last drive that I'll be doing for about 2 weeks. But for those who are still here in the Mara, this is the first decent rain we've got, and they're going to be able to show you an incredible transformation. There's a few little green shoots kind of popping up in this burnt area, but not much, and that's because there's hardly been any rain. So take a close look now, and even tomorrow it will have started to erupt out of the earth. So looking forward to that. Very good. We've just opened that little window in order to be able to show you a glimpse of what's going on, and yeah, it's not easy going out here in these conditions, is it? Sounds like David's also been caught in a storm now, so he's in a similar situation to me. It seems like the entire Masai Mara is getting rainfall. There's lots of different kind of clouds of rain that we can see all around us, but really, really wonderful news, because we have been desperate for rain out here, and this is the first decent rain we've been getting in weeks. Ah, Monique, in London, you've noticed that a lot of these zebras have got quite big bellies, and well noted, quite a few of them will be pregnant and showing signs of their pregnancy now. So that is the case. Although, interestingly, even that youngster to the right of the big one now, even that one's stomach is a little bit extended, and it's not uncommon to see zebra with kind of bloated stomachs. Part of their digestive system, it kind of entails a lot of gas. So when you find zebra running or being chased by something, you often hear a little bit of flatulation as they go, and that is because there is a lot of extra gas build-up in their stomaches. So a combination of that and the fact that a lot of those mares are pregnant will be the reason, Monique. Leah, you feeling very sorry for these zebras in the rain, and yeah, I mean, we are very lucky as humans that we get to seek refuge in the rain, but most wild animals don't have that privilege, and they've just got to sit and wait it out. But like I did say a little bit earlier, Leah, they are going to very soon be enjoying the benefits of this rain. No rain, no tasty green grass, I guess, so they know the deal. Carrie, you would like to know if predators will hunt more during kind of rainy conditions, kind of like they do when it's very windy. And yes, I think it is fair to say that predators will be more inclined to kind of get their acts together and go hunting when it is a windy or be rainy, and that's because it's very easy for them to catch their prey in those conditions, because obviously as they approach, their prey will battle to hear them because there's so much ambient noise from the rain. The wind will be blowing, so even their movements will be masked by the grass blowing in the wind. So yes, perfect hunting conditions. Who knows, maybe we'll get lucky and we'll see some action unfold in the rain. Wonderful stuff. Well, we're gonna zip up our little window that we've opened to show you, keep moving around, and while we do that, we're gonna send you back down south to Steve.
Well, thank you very much, Scott. I hope you all don't drown or get stuck up in the rain, but indeed, what a beautiful scene the rain is, and it always provides such nourishment to the grass and the ecosystem afterwards. We are needing some rain. We just scan the terrain now. You can see the leafless landscape in general. Ooh, there we go. And there's a bird called the southern black tit, which likes to jump in and around the tree, gleaning insects. It's incredible that there are still insects around at this time of year for these insect-eating birds, and lots of them quite camouflaged. Some of them might even have been eggs, and due to the spatterings of rain we had the other day, there might be all sorts of little caterpillars that are starting to emerge from very secreted away hiding holes on the bottom of leaves or seed pods or within the bark. They're all slowly starting to come out. As you know, spring with the rains is an abundance of life out in the African plains, and it always comes immediately after rain with an abundance of insects. Sometimes we even eat them while we're driving and talking to you lovely people. Obviously we don't intend to eat them. Beautiful. So that is the landscape at the moment, and it'd be nice to do a time lapse of that, wouldn't it, Seb? Through from here until probably 3 months' time, after the rains have fully hit and all the trees burst back into life and the vegetation, the grass rejuvenates. A very different landscape indeed, and it's quite incredible how far you can actually see on a day like this in the winter months. I'm trying to actually figure out what it is we're looking at over there. That's Chitwa, is it? No? We're looking directly east, so that must be Buffelshoek. Areas we don't really even get to spend any time on the far side up there. Okay, well, we're going to keep meandering down the hill. We're basically just on the other side of the drainage there that we wanted to maybe see if Thandi pops out. So let's go have a look down here, see if there's any sign of her. Okay, well, in the meantime, as we keep looking for these tracks of this elusive cat and her daughter, let's go to Tristan, see how he's getting along.
Well, Steve, not very well at this stage. I can't find any sign for Hosanna. I checked that drainage area, nothing that I could find coming southwards from it, which means he's somewhere around. It's just, I have no idea how he's managed to kind of slip our collective efforts so far. So I'm just checking Twin Dams quickly just to see if there isn't some sign here. So, yes, Brian, of course there are leopards in the area that I've never seen before. There's a lot of migratory, well, not migratory is the wrong word, but males that are passing through that sometimes don't have a territory. You know, there's always movement of leopards. We don't know all of them that are around all the time. A good example of that is when Hukamuri turned up. I mean, he wasn't known to anyone really when he first arrived here, and yet, you know, after a few months of detective work by some of you guys that really helped a lot, we were able to work out where he kind of came from, but he was a bit of a mystery to start with. And there's a male now that is currently not far from here that's north of us, mating with another female in the Manialeti Buffelshoek boundary, which is not a long way away. And I mean, we don't know that female at all. She's called Ukutula, but because she comes from another area. And then there's a male that no one knows where he comes from, that's also there. So, you know, there are leopards that move around these areas sometimes that we have no idea who they are. There was a male that was seen a few times here on the southern boundary and inside Little Gowrie that no one knows or recognizes at all. And so, you know, it's the way it is sometimes. There's these random individuals and random animals that appear and disappear through these kind of areas, but for the most part, I mean, we have a fairly good idea who's around and who isn't, and kind of what's going on for the most part. Like I say, there can be surprises from time to time. Now, Hosanna doesn't seem to have crossed south. I've checked the fire breaks, I've checked a little bit of Gowrie Main, I've checked Cheetah Cut Line, so he hasn't gone east, so he must be somewhere here. He's either turned back north and kind of turned behind James and went over the tracks, and then with James driving around this morning trying to find him, maybe squashed his track there in the dark. It's possible. Or he lay down and is just lying down in a thicket where we just haven't spotted him yet. But I don't know. I mean, I just get the feeling that we might be in the wrong area at this stage. Kai, theoretically, yes, but you can never say with 100% certainty that he'll get pushed out of Djuma when he gets bigger. For now, you know, Tingana seems fairly tolerant and is not too worried about him, and so it seems like all is okay, but you never know. I mean, there could be a day where Tingana just decides that's enough is enough and then chases him out, and he could then have to go and be a male that spends a lot of his time in other areas. Tough to say, you know, we don't really have the answers, and there's cases of some young males staying in their natal areas and becoming dominant, and there's also cases where they get pushed far afield. Quarantine and Hukamuri are two examples. Quarantine's ended up right here. He's not very far at all from his natal territory. He's pretty much just next door, and And then you have Hukamuri, who's travelled close, you know, over 300 kilometres probably to get to where he is now. So it just depends. I mean, there's a bit of, you know, but it could be any way really, and there's a bit of give and take on the whole thing. Right, now, it's nothing on Twin Dams. There's nothing at Twin Dams' road, so I'm going to try and just scratch around on the eastern side, check Mamba again, check Batalia. While I do that, let's send you back across to Steve, who's got himself, well, something that Hosana probably wants to eat.
Yes, well, we watched Hosana stalking these individuals, maybe not exactly these ones, but Impala just like this during the night, and he wasn't successful due to the fact that they hang out in nice groups like this. It's very hard to get close enough because lots of ears and eyes, very sneaky. But I think maybe Hosana, Tristan, has decided to take the afternoon off. He is a show star, superstar after all, and he deserves an afternoon off before his big finale this evening for those of you in America and tomorrow morning for us. So he's going to just get his beauty rest so that he can perform absolutely beautifully for us in the early hours. And these Impala are making hay while the sun shines. They're looking forward to some spring rainfall. There's probably a little bit of flush in the grass there that's very difficult to make out. But with their narrow mouth parts, they're able to get in there and selectively pick off the juiciest little bits. Yes, Megs, Impala are very pretty, and this guy is so hungry he is eating while having a poo. Now that is a need to get it in, isn't it? You're so busy, you don't even have time to stop for a break. But you can see how deliberately they walk through, and any juicy part that would be here, the trees, the grass, those Impala would find and would denude. There we go. A little bit of a quick chew. A little bit of saliva on there, swallow it quickly, next mouthful. The mouth part's able to really get access in there to that vegetation. Lots of sort of grass that's kept its sort of vigor for this time of year. Some nutrients are available, but you can see that they're not eating the long grasses there. They're not eating the long stems. They're really digging in and trying to find small bits and pieces that might have just flushed from the very small rain we had. Something that your bulk grazers aren't able to do. They have to just eat bulk, when these very selective feeders are able to be very delicate in their feeding. Jeep jockey, not that I'm aware of. They don't have a summer coat or a winter coat. What they are able to do is to pilo erect and stand their fur up. Maybe there is a little bit more fur on some of these animals in the winter. Not that I've noticed. But they are able to stand it up like we do when we get goosebumps. They pilo erect the fur and it stands up tall. And there's a bit of a disciplinary action happening off to our right. We are almost to the next full moon, which would mean the final stages of the second rut are going to be finished, and there is one boisterous male chasing one very unlucky female around the paddock. We might get another view of them as they come tearing through. There he comes, straight towards us. She has been put in her place. Here he comes, just to cause chaos. She said no, he said why not, and now it is a game of who can catch who. The only adult male in the herd. He's got nothing else in his mind. He can smell the estrus in certain females that didn't fall pregnant in the last rutting season. Not many of them. That's why the rut is not so vigorous as it was. He's hoping to get his seed sown, and here he comes, chasing her again. I don't know if this tactic works very well, chasing someone around. Maybe he thinks she'll eventually get tired. There they go. She's just as quick as you, my friend. It's Friday night in the African wilderness. Here it comes again, right past us this time. You'll be able to hear him. Oh, there he is. What are you doing? Leave her be. Leave her be. Go back to your wanderings. He's a very good specimen. You see how strong he's looking. Looking very fit. Tracy. No, come here, my darling, he was saying in his very loud snorting voice. A very loud snorting voice that sometimes can be misconstrued for an alarm call, but the alarm calls are much shorter. Where's that? That the male's doing is more forced, pushed out, maybe because of bigger breaths. Just like that. Oh, sorry. I just touched the clutch. Okay, well, the rest of the impala are absolutely nonplussed by it all. They initially jumped at that sound, but as they noticed it wasn't the alarm call, it was more the rutting call, they quickly dropped their heads and didn't care anymore. And off they go. A number of the females are already pregnant. Start seeing some bulges in the belly. And important for them to get all the nourishments in that they can before they breed. They want to obviously have as much body fitness before the giving birth time occurs. Anyway, we're going to move on, see if we can get back to the Duke, and in the meantime, let's go back over the Tristan and see what his plans are.
Well, I'm not sure at this stage, Steve. No sign of Hosana. It's like he's grown wings and vanished. Even Herbie says he doesn't know where he's gone. There's literally just tracks going up and down, up and down, up and down all over the place. And he says between him and Tingana, he's not sure. Also, it seems like a young male leopard walked in the Milwaukee last night. So it's strange to me because Hosana was left yesterday just north of Ingwe Alley, and we found him this morning just off Ingwe Alley, as though he had moved around there. But there were tracks for a young male leopard in the Milwaukee heading south, and so which looked like his size tracks. So I don't know what he got up to last night, if he went all that way or what his story was. But anyway, he's kind of giving us the elusive skip at this stage, and we haven't found any sign of him. The problem is Mamba Road. The guys have been busy working on it today, and so they've driven up and down here. Looks like it's been graded in some ways as well, which means that he might have crossed here, and we just have missed his tracks now, unfortunately, which is not good. Now there's a big path that runs north-south here on my left that I just want to double check to make sure he hasn't gone over here. Grace, I mean, you can never say never. It would be very unusual, but it could, I suppose, happen that a leopard adopts another cub. There was a story of a leopard raising cubs from her daughter, I believe it was, on Mala Mala, but I've never heard of one taking when they're still tiny, because generally a leopard's not producing milk if they're still tiny. If it's old enough not to be on milk, then I suppose it is possible, and you can never say never with leopards. They are a funny animal, and you could also see something take place where a leopard maybe loses her cubs and then could potentially foster other cubs maybe, and she'll still produce milk because she's got that sense that she's still nursing her own. I suppose that's possible, but it would be highly unusual. It's not something that they do. It's not a kind of trait that they have where they will just go and kind of be like, oh look, there's a cub, I'm going to go and take that cub as my own and nurse it. Or even if the cub was helpless, the chance of them finding it and all these kind of things would be quite interesting. So I mean, you can, like I say, you never rule out anything, but it would be very, very unlikely. Alright, Hosana, where are you? Come on, boy. You've got to show yourself now. I'm hoping that he's just going to pop out somewhere and be his usual self on a mound somewhere. He's got to go back to the dam. It's TV time tomorrow, so we need him back at the dam. And this is what I was talking about with the guys working. So you can see they made these kind of big mounds here, and just to try and fix the roads a little bit. And so this will have maybe meant that some of the tracks unfortunately have been squashed, which could be sort of helping with our demise at this stage in failing to track Hosanna. Now, I don't normally give up very easily when it comes to leopard tracking, but it's difficult when you don't find a track itself at all. Now, Hosanna, no, but I mean, some leopards, yes. Tingana, we know, can have a really good nap when he wants to, and can sleep just as much as any lion or cheetah, but Hosanna not so much. He's a busy boy and is often moving around and walking around and doing his thing and chasing stuff. But essentially, they are like any other big cat in that they do like to rest and take it quite easy a lot of the time, and the vast majority of the time. So, you know, they are animals of habit, and they do like to have a bit of a nap too and conserve their energy. Cat is a cat at the end of the day. They all need nap time in order to be at their best. It's a beautiful afternoon in terms of the light, though. We've got such beautiful light. It would be so nice just to find Hosanna. But what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to maybe, just maybe, move out of the area. I might go and just check up on the evoker males that I had this morning, see if maybe, just maybe, they are still visible from the boundary. I think Rex is going to head in that direction, so I might wait for an update for him, head in that way, maybe see if we can find them, and then come back here late, just before the end of drive, and see if we can't find Hosanna moving around somewhere in this general vicinity. That would be ideal. Most definitely, Safari Girl, a lioness would absolutely hammer a male leopard. She's much bigger than he is. So an average lioness is going to weigh 120 kilograms, so 240 pounds, as opposed to a male leopard that's probably only just under, 180 to 200 pounds. So there's a weight advantage, and most of the time lions will dominate a leopard hands down. You obviously do get times where the tables turn. There used to be a male leopard on Mala Mala that actually fought with lions over a kill once, which was quite insane, and chased off a few lionesses to get to the kill and fed on it, which was pretty incredible. But for the most part, no, lions will absolutely hammer a leopard hands down. I'm just trying to check as we go very carefully to make sure that I'm not missing anything, but so far really nothing happening. Right, well, I'm going to keep looking. Steve's still looking. Hopefully something's going to give and we're going to find a sign of a leopard somewhere. But let's go across to Steve and see if he's had any luck. Better than what I have.
No, we're on our way back to the Duke. He's been moving south, and I've been trying to get back into the sighting for some time, but it's been busy with regards to other vehicles. So we are on a standby. We're heading there, and it seems like he might cross Gowrie Main in a short. To get ourselves into that sort of position and see exactly where. He's expanding his territory indeed, the Duke. Sure, we're going to be coming up here now onto Gowrie Main. Have a quick little look. There I can see the vehicle, so let's quickly race forward. Confirm I can make my way, gentlemen. I think he's in the road up ahead. Okay, we are on a busy road now, which is always a problem. I think he might have crossed, which is never a good thing. Just too long. Yeah, he's crossed. He's headed towards the left-hand side there. Continue. You're gone. Thank you. Well, he has just crossed, folks. He's just gone south. That's okay. He'll come back. We'll head back into else we can find for ourselves. He just got a spurt of energy there and stood up and started walking directly south, which is what he does. little bit busy down here. L6, you most certainly do get more butterflies in okay, in all of South Africa. We're forward. There we go. There he's going. There he's going. He's going to turn around and come right back again. Just when you think you've lost him, just when you think he's out of reach, he turns back in again. And he's going to come right back towards us. That is a Dylan Leo Smith in the vehicle up ahead. Hello, Dylan. Those of you who don't know, it's Brent's younger brother. We're not going to show him because he's surrounded by a whole lot of other people. Just move forward a couple of centimeters. There we go. You know, he's just kind of, he's going to do what Asana did the other day. He's going to have a little look here, and he's going to come right back again. Don't you think, Seb? We don't know too much of his southward movements these days. He hasn't gone south too many times that we know of. He spent a lot of time in Djuma. He's been expanding further west and further north and east into Torchwood. I don't know too much of his sort of southern boundary exploits. Lots of yays indeed. He is up, and he is not just a little peanut like he was before. He is a fully grown male leopard. Probably not as big as they get because he's lost a little bit of weight in my opinion, but he is a big, big cat. Yeah, Mrs. Lapwing, he walked across the road and then he checked his mobile and realized that actually there's a TV show on tomorrow and he's going to be back very, very soon. He's just going to turn around and he'll be back in Djuma momentarily. He's just having a little sojourn down here, see if the Dacre look any different. He's moving back again. There he goes. He's a bit unsure. He's moving up. He's moving down. It's a very busy area to be in. We're just going to stay put where we are. That is Little Gowrie just below us, or where he is in. He's only 40 meters in. We don't have the traversing rights to be going in there. But if he comes back towards the road and crosses into Djuma, well, we are going to be the only ones with him because everyone has left from the Djuma Traverse side. It's almost like he sets a boundary, doesn't it? He's walking parallel with it and then parallel the other way. And sorry, you might get a vehicle in shot. Sorry about that. So people trying to find the leopard themselves. But we're going to stay close here for a little bit and see if he does come back again. Poofy poof, the sense of prey awaken leopard? Yeah, most likely. We definitely gets hyenas going, up and running, the smell of blood in the air. Everyone likes to talk about the fact that when a leopard opens the stomach of an animal, how quickly, just off to the right of them there, move forward, see if we can get him again. When they open the stomach, the smell that gets left off really does leave quite a bit of an air of something out there that animals do quite like to respond to. But it's the sound quite often that attracts a predator. We're just going to stay here for a minute and see if he does come back. It's the sound of an animal dying that is very relevant to attracting animals to prey, but the smell is not something generally that a leopard will wake up to. When they start walking and they pick up the scent of a smell somewhere along the way, yes, most certainly will they then get attracted to that area. But it all depends on the wind, how strong the wind is. If there is a kill in the nearby vicinity, happens to just waft, just have another look over there, just waft towards. So say if the wind really picks up and there happens to be a kill not too far away, then most certainly you can get a leopard or a lion up and going. But it's really got to be quite a wind, I'd say. But they do pick up the scent of something, a drag mark, for example, or blood in the air, especially if an animal's hoisted. But a hyena are the best at doing that, and we've seen Tingana find his sons and Tundi's food on a regular occasion. But that's generally when they get up and start moving. That's when they do find. Okay, Tingana, well, we'll see you at 4:30 tomorrow morning, South African time. Just over here would be very nice. Thank you. Megan and FC is busy just typing in his organizer there, his little diary. He knows he's got to come back. He's having a look, just a little look and see what the grass, if it is indeed greener on the other side, and he'll be coming back again. But in the meantime, we're going to be going back over to Tristan and see if he's had any luck.
No, Steve, still no luck, unfortunately. We're still looking around and trying to see what's happening. Just trying to kind of figure out where he could have gone from where we are now. So this is basically where the last area where he was seen was just over here, and from there I just have no idea. It's been conditions that he should have walked around a lot more than, you know. James, no update on Kuchava, I'm afraid. Nothing that I've heard. She was seen, it was a few days ago. It was actually probably longer than I actually remember. Probably about a week ago, I think, by guys at Chitwa. Just after she finished that Diker kill, she was then seen a couple of days after that, somewhere on Chitwa area, and then nothing since then that I've heard. And we don't get many updates, unfortunately, from the guys in the east at the moment. It's because Brent's brother's on leave, so most of the updates I get from the east is from Brent's brother or from Peter from Nkoro, but both of them are on leave at the moment, which makes life a little bit more tricky in working out what's actually going on. So I haven't got too many updates from them at this stage, but I mean, I did speak to Dylan today. He's back. He got back to work, like, I think yesterday or the day before, and he says he hasn't seen any sign of her, and no sign. So yes, he is back on shift, Megan. He got back a few days ago, so there we go. Steve mentioned it, and so hopefully we'll be able to get us an update on Kuchava and what's going on. In terms of the other leopards that are hanging around in our area, nothing on quarantine for the last few days. Well, not that I've heard. There's been nothing on him, nothing on Hukamuri or Shidulu today that I know of. I did ask the guys, but no one's come back to me with anything yet. So it seems all quiet on the boundary side of life. I just hope that Hosana, Tandi, Klalamba or Tingana, one of them decides to come out for tomorrow morning. It's obviously a little concerning when you kind of lose them in these areas and they're all right up against the southern boundary. It's not ideal. Now, I dare say it, but the wind has been coming from the south, and the movement we've seen from all of our cats over the last 24 hours has all been southwards. So I wonder what is going on and whether or not, hopefully, this wind is going to change and bring our cats coming back this way. That would be quite nice. It'd be better if they did. Hosana, where are you, boy? I know you're here somewhere. I've just got to find you. So Debbie, yes, Tingana basically means shy or skittish in the local language. It was because of his demeanor when he first arrived here. He was not a relaxed leopard at all. I remember the first time I saw him, I'll give you an idea of how skittish he was. So we obviously all know we get quite close to leopards and even Tingana these days. But if you have a look from where I'm sitting right now, and there's a tree over there, that would be the closest we got to Tingana for probably the first 4 or 5 weeks that we saw him would be that distance, and then he would just run away from you and you wouldn't get any closer to him, and he was very elusive, much like Ejima in many respects. And then over time he started to mate and he had a few kills, and we kind of pestered him a little bit more and more and more, and eventually he kind of just got used to us. And it was a weird thing. He mated with Salehesh, and then within I can't remember who the other female was. There was 2 of them, maybe might have even been Moya. And he mated with them, and we spent a lot of time with him, and because both those girls are so relaxed, he was kind of forced to be relaxed because he wanted to mate with them more than he was scared of us. And then after that he became fairly viewable. We didn't have too many issues with him after that. He seemed fairly good. It didn't really kind of become too much of a problem, and then he's now, you know, he's the most relaxed individual that there is out there. But alas, no sign of him. I was hoping I'd pick up some sort of track for him somewhere here, or just him lying up and sitting on a termite mound doing his thing. There's been no alarm calls. I've spent the majority of my afternoon in the same area. I haven't heard a single alarm call, so I don't know where little Hosana can be. He's probably sitting at the pan. I put the dam there and we've just missed his tracks altogether, and it's going to appear on the dam cam at some point just now. I would be thoroughly happy if that is the case, because, you know, as long as he's around, that means we're good to go. I get a bit nervous when he's down at the bottom here. It's no good. I don't want him to leave our area and go anywhere else. I know it's naughty of me, but it's true. This is where the tracks are. This is definitely Tingana's track. It's not Hosana's track. That's here. But maybe Hosana's just lingering around. I wonder if he maybe followed Tingana's track. Might be worth Steve just double checking back at Treehouse Dam again. You know how Hosana can be. He might follow and just think to himself, well, hang on a second, maybe, just maybe, I can follow Dad and see what he's up to. Now, it's just too much of a coincidence that both leopards were in a similar area for this not to be... I don't know, actually. Might be his tracks. They look nice, though. They look like from during the day. So, who knows? Herbie says they're Tinganas, and they do look a bit like Tinganas, but I'm not 100% sure. Right, now talking about Tingana, Steve's left Tingana and is now going to be bumbling about much like I am, and maybe, like I say, he'll head off towards Treehouse Dam and see if maybe Hosana's been following his dad.
Yes, well, we have lost him. He kept moving south, but don't worry, we put a note in his planner. He'll be available for you tomorrow morning, depending on your hours of day, wherever you are. And we're going to go back towards Treehouse Dam, as Tristan suggests. That's a good idea. We came back in on Shabamo Road, and now I forget the name of this road, but it takes us to Treehouse Dam. And it's not called Treehouse Dam Road, if you are asking. Nope. No. Nathaniel, yes, leopards are most certainly territorial. All of the big cats are territorial. Male leopards and female leopards are both territorial. And essentially, you can, through research, what they've found out is you can get about 3 females within the territory of 1 male. But those territories are a little bit fluid, and they do overlap to some extent. But generally, about on average, 3 females will define a territory within the territory of a male, and that is done through urine scent marking and also calling, and quite vigorously. And that's also how they communicate with each other when they want to mate. They smell the urine. They also call to attract the opposite sex, and the calling actually also tries and repels others of the same sex out of that area so as to avoid conflict. These animals are solitary. They don't want to fight everyone they see, so it's quite important for them to sort of push each other away just with vocal communication or scent marking, which is often enough to keep the others away. Because any sort of interaction can lead to injury, and injury can lead to death in the case of a leopard. A leopard that cannot climb a tree, I always say this, will not be able to avoid lions or hyenas. So Thana, I hope that answers your question. And after some rain, you often get them moving again, because the scent mark gets washed away with the rainfall. And that's why we had Tingana the other day. Straight after the very small spattering of rain, he was moving, covering his entire territory, and it seems like he's even expanding, because what could have happened is he could have got down to the bottom here, where he's gone a little bit out of what we think of his range at the moment. Maybe he's got there and there's no fresh scent mark at all, so he's like, okay, well, this little piece is open, he's going to claim it for himself and just make a bigger loop in that area for himself. Or he might just be investigating, going and having a look and seeing what prospects are out. Are females scent marking in the area? Can he pick up on their smell? Can he find a lady to mate? There's all sorts of things going on in the mind of these animals at any given time. It's very hard to really put your finger on exactly what is going on. But he didn't look hungry to me, so it's more of an inquisitive sort of adventure he's on. The zebra, I think it's possible. Male leopard, a big male leopard could probably take down a wildebeest, probably 1 in 10 times. I don't think it's one of those sort of occurrences that's going to work all the time. A male wildebeest is a big animal, But if a leopard gets it in the right spot and the right angle and the claws in the right place and it gets the throat choke, most certainly. But wildebeest are tough animals. They're big, they're strong. They probably weigh 2.5, 3 times what a leopard weighs. So that's an enormous amount of body weight to try and tackle. Leopard are pound for pound the strongest cat. So I think everything is possible with the... there goes some birds. I wanted to show you some birds, but they are gone. The migrants are going to slowly be coming back. It's going to be a very interesting time of year. I love it when the migrants arrive and everyone's putting money on the winners. Who's going to arrive first? James, I think, has got 14th of November for the woodland kingfishers. I've got 18th of November.
13.
What have you got, Seb?
13 November.
Seb has gone and made a safe bet of 13. I hope you're all paying attention out there to these dates. Okay, this is when the decision-making time comes in. Do we go left? Do we go right? Because this could determine what animals we just randomly bump into. The wind is blowing in that sort of direction. It's kind of coming across this way. I'm feeling that way. Seb has whispered from behind the camera. He wants to go right. We're going to go with our gut. We're going to go that way. Back towards the middle and the Umawati. Kind of backtracking Tingana back towards Umawati. Maybe Hosana will pop up. We did do that road early on our way out. Maybe Tandi will materialize. We didn't find any fresh tracks of her and a little youngster. Fresher than last night. So we're going to keep trying. But there's a lot of luck involved in this game. Lucky guesses as well. And a little bit of gut instinct. Nicola, that is a great question. I was told when I started here that we have the potential to see 9 different leopards, or maybe it's 12. I have only seen Tingana, Tandi, Shidulu and Hukumuri adult leopards. Kuchava I saw recently. She was in Chitwa area. So her territory kind of encompasses Chitwa and a little bit south of there into Torchwood. I've only seen her once. But to be honest with you, Tristan is the leopard expert extraordinaire, and he could tell you an entire thesis on the leopard territory sizes. I'm going with what I've seen, and I've never seen Quarantine. He's to the north and the east. Anderson Male's much further down. So it's not as many as I was led to believe initially, but these things are fluid, they do change, they do move, and we do have the blessing to have all these young leopards hanging around. Obviously Hosana's not territorial at the moment, Tlalumba's too young for any of that, but we've had incredible leopard sightings since I've been here in January, and yes, so that is my final analysis for you right now. But the man to ask, in all honesty, about the leopard territory sizes, make sure you've got a pen and paper, or he's got a pen and paper, something to draw it on, because it can get a little bit confusing, but very interesting nonetheless. So we're continuing on. We got some impala up ahead here who are moving very slowly through the long grass. They are very good indicators for us about the presence of predators, and they are moving with the wind in their favor, blowing into their face. They're headed sort of in the direction of twin dams. Maybe they're headed there to have a drink, who knows? Maybe they're headed somewhere because it's starting to get dark. Maybe they're going to go find themselves a nice sort of open area to spend the night. Exactly where we have this herd now is where we found a herd on the drone this morning. Quite a large herd that Hosana was trying to hunt, and then he missed them because there was just too many. And then a little bit further east where we're going to go now, we had a very nice aerial view of Hosana hunting from the drone, and it was a small herd of about 7. He must have got to about, what, Seb, you reckon 3 or 4 meters from those animals? That's what it appeared from the sky anyway, 3 or 4 meters, which you think is a very good distance for a leopard, but all of a sudden we could see that something happened and all the animals spooked and ran off. So he did try very hard, and there's probably a good chance that he's secreted himself away somewhere with a prize that he managed to get while no one was looking. We're hoping that is the case, because that means we will definitely well, he will still be in the same place in the... Well, our wind is all but died down. It's a little bit windy still. The clouds thought they would disappear, but they're still a little bit around. But all the way back up in the Masai Mara, the rain seems to have abated slightly. Let's go and see.
Well, no joy, the rain is continuing, although it has subsided a little bit. It was quite torrential at one point in time. Heavy, heavy winds and lots of rain. Ah, wonderful. All 4 of the giraffes lined up nicely there, chewing the cud. And tricky conditions out here today, but very, very useful, because this area has been very dry. If any of you have just hopped on board, we desperately need the rain here. So wonderful, wonderful stuff, even though it is putting a little bit of a spanner in the works regarding this afternoon safari. I can assure you though, you can expect some beautiful, beautiful scenes in the coming days after all this rain. It appears like the whole of the Mara Triangle has been getting good rain. It's not just certain patches. It's incredible how localized the rain can be in this reserve. But today I think everywhere is getting some good moisture. Oh no, I've just noticed that the wind is blowing straight in the little window that we've opened, so we're probably actually going to have to close that up sooner rather than later and say, well, we don't have to say goodbye to you, you can drive along with us, but it's not going to be much fun because you can't see too much. Yeah, let's close this up quickly, Archie, just, yeah. Oi. Sorry everyone, there we go, little peephole is now closed, and we're going to send you across to Tristan, who is driving about.
Unfortunately I am, Scott. There's, well, not much going on down in Djuma at the moment, so I'm just driving for the hope that something will reveal itself at some point, a track, a sign, anything really, but it's a bit dire at this stage, so just trying to see. I mean, there's really nothing to work with. We kind of went to where the last tracks for Osana was. We can't really get out the vehicle to track given the Mara has got some rain issues, and so it's just kind of hopefully that they just appear on the road and I can actually then get them or something like that. Cindy, where are all the elephants? Cold weather is where they all are. They're hiding. Ellies don't like the cold weather, don't like it when it's windy, they don't like it when it's cold and windy, and so they get into the thickest, densest bush. I did see some tracks for Ellies just now that looked like from early this morning, so they might be around here somewhere, but I haven't seen Ellies for the last couple of days, and it's because it's been a bit on the cooler side today. They've probably all just kind of disappeared. It's also this time of the year we get a lot of elephant movement where we'll go days without any, and then we'll get a few herds, and then days without any again, then a few herds, and kind of just rotates through like that. And it's generally because of the amount of food and water availability. There really isn't much water on Djuma to sustain big herds of elephants every single day, and so they kind of come through and then decide to move on, and that's how it kind of goes with them. So that's, unfortunately, it's not ideal because I like having Ellies around, and lots of big herds of Ellies are always nice. Well, there's some kudu. There's a heartbeat, David. Don't fall out the car with shock and excitement, please. There we go. Female kudu walking over the open area. I've driven past here this is probably my 5th time that I'm driving past here now, and there is more than just this one kudu. There's actually quite a few of them that are down in the bottom in the drainage itself, but as is with kudu, they don't generally sit still. This one luckily is going to the toilet, which means that we are able to actually watch it stay still for more than 1 second. They normally try and get in behind some thickets where they just camouflage a little bit better, but very, very cool. Now you can see she's got a few interesting kind of spots on her neck. There's little darker fur areas. I wonder what that's from. It's quite strange, isn't it? I've never really noticed that on a female kudu before. She's almost spotty on her neck. Should be easy to identify her then. It doesn't look like water or anything like that. It just looks like the color of her fur. And you can see that bright white tail. It's very, very pretty when they turn their tails up like that. And that's essentially just to be able to follow one another through these thickets. You can see how much that sort of glows in these thickets, and it really contrasts against the darkness of a wooded area. And so when they are feeling like they are disturbed and they are fleeing a predator, it allows babies and other herd members to be able to follow in a line. Now I wonder why she's keeping her tail out. Maybe she's air drying after going to the toilet, and then once she feels like everything's good, she'll put her tail back down again, because generally kudu or antelopes don't walk with their tail up for too long. Yep, off she goes. Right, onward. At least that was something to see. It was good to have an animal that is around and at least walking, rather than just a barren road in front of us. It's going to be a nice sunset today, actually. An ostrich. So a midden is essentially a territorial marking. So that is what a midden is. Basically what happens is an animal goes to a place that is on their boundary, that they know is utilized, or not even on their boundary, but in their territory, in an area that is utilized by many other animals and many of the same species. And it sends a very clear marker that this is my territory, I own this area, I am the territory dominant individual. And so they can defecate there on regular intervals, and it just keeps reminding people that there is this dominant male that is around. It's typically with males. You don't very often see middens created by females. Mostly only the boys that do it, but essentially that's how it goes, is that they're just defecating to mark a territory. It's much like a lion roaring, or a lion kind of going and scraping its back legs and scent marking, or a leopard spraying a bush. It's essentially, that's what that animal does, and it just leaves a marker that is updated repeatedly to try and reaffirm the boundaries. Now here's some beautiful nyala. We've just seen kudu, so if you're ever wondering what the difference is between a kudu and a nyala, well, there we go. That is how different they actually look. This one, you can see, is much more reddish in color than that grey kudu we saw, much smaller and less bulky than what you see from the kudus. These guys are kind of worm through the thickets much easier. Now, David, I've spotted something else that I want you to please try and put on the camera. I'm going to roll back slightly for you, but through that gap there in that leadwood, there is a bird of prey, I think, sitting on top of the tree. It looks like a bird of prey. I first thought it might be a cuckoo, but it's definitely not a cuckoo. Now let's just see, is it our shikra pair that lives around this area? It looks like a shikra. Yes, it's got the cherry red eye. So a little shikra that we've got in this area, we see them quite regularly on this particular section of the road. There's actually, I'm sure, a nest somewhere here that they are using. We see them every year, and well, often when I drive this road I spot them flying around, the two of them. So a very cool bird, not one that you get to see regularly. I mean, it is it's not uncommon, but it's just getting them on camera is often quite tricky. Very, very cool to see. Good. Now there's our nyala in front of us, a beautiful female nyala that is there. And so, well, while we admire our nyala, let's send you back across to Steve, who's got what we had just now in the form of a kudu.
We do. We've got the bigger relative of the nyala, the kudu, and look at his beautiful passenger cleaning him as he feeds. What a marvelous young male this is. Look how he just munches those leaves. I'm trying to see what plant it is exactly that he's feeding on. It's very hard to tell from here, but it looks like one of the spike thorns. Some fresh new leaves that are coming forward. But he's munching. Richard, you've just asked me a question I do not know the answer to. I think the greater kudu and the lesser kudu, the greater being larger than the lesser, but I don't actually know what the exact differences are between them when it comes to size or shape. I'm going to assume that one is slightly bigger than the other, but when it comes to physical attributes and looks, I really don't know. If there's anyone out there that does know the difference between the greater and lesser kudus, can you please send through #SafariLive or drop them on the YouTube stream. Let us know your answers. Very good question. Okay, well, it seems like I'm thinking you said Tristan has got both, Megs, so we'll go to Tristan and he can answer the question.
Well, I don't have both because we don't get a lesser kudu here, but I've seen both. So I've seen a lesser kudu up in the Savo region of Kenya, and I'm going to show you a picture of what they look like so you can get an idea of the kind of differences between them and the normal kudu that we see here. Right, so this is a lesser kudu over here. Essentially what you've got is you can see that it's got, a lot of the time they have these little white markings on the neck, so these kind of throat stripes. The horn structure you can see is almost like a cross between a nyala and a kudu. It never gets the same like a kudu with lots and lots of turns on it. And then the body size of this animal is pretty much between a nyala and a kudu. It's closer to a nyala in terms of its size, a big male. They have a little bit of a longer horn set than what the nyala does, and they've got a coloration that's between the two. So they like this kind of grey chocolate, whereas the kudu itself is very grey and the nyala is chocolate. But otherwise, very similar to what we see from both nyala and kudu. It's obviously part of the same family, but they are a very cool animal. I've seen, like I said, quite a few of them in the Savo region. You see them quite regularly, and if you drive from Nairobi to Mombasa, and there's a highway that runs through there, I often see them come on the side of the highway or kind of crossing over. It's a pretty cool thing to see. It's amazing driving down highways like that, and then all of a sudden there's this big, amount of animals all over the place. Sometimes you get elephants, sometimes you get all kinds of random things around. Okay, where to from here? So, Vegas cat lover, how tall is a adult kudu? To be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I've seen big bull kudus where I would imagine, and I suppose, what do we constitute as tall? Is it its shoulder height? Is it the top of their head? Or is it the top of the horns? Because those are all very different heights. If it's top of the head, I would say a kudu could easily be about 6 foot, is what I would guess. I mean, I might be wrong, but it's about that is what I would guess. With the horns on, if you've got a seriously big set of horns on there, that animal could be close to, I would say 8 or 10 feet tall with a big set of horns on them. So they're big animals. I mean, they're not a small species in any stretch of the imagination. They're not quite as large as the eland. The eland is a seriously big individual and very bulky and very stocky, and so it's an animal that people forget just how big they are. It weighs more than a buffalo does at times. So a big bull eland is a monstrous animal, part of the same family, but it's very, very big. Kudu is much taller, but is not as stocky as what the eland is. So interesting to see them, though. Quite enjoy actually spending time with all of that particular family. They all have a very beautiful look about them. So kudu, nyala, bushbuck, and eland, I really kind of enjoy them. Anyway, actually, funny enough, I'm quite looking forward to going to the Congo so that maybe I can see a bongo, which would be quite nice, which reminded me of the kudus. Anyway, we'll send you back across to Steve, who's still with his kudu, and I wonder what they're up to now.
They are still feeding. Thank you for spelling out the answers there, Tristan, for everybody. I hope that has become more clear to everybody. I didn't get the answer there, so I'm going to have to go and have a little look-see in my books when I get home. And this family of kudu has decided to disappear into the thickets, apart from the one, Seb, that's still sitting. That is the tallest kudu in the world right there. Normally they stand about 1.5 meters at the shoulder. And this individual is standing on a mound that is 1.5 meters, so it is double the height. The world's largest antelope. It's only because she's standing on the mound, but that's to get access to a bush on top. And we are right up against the Umawati drainage now and the river system. And there's lots of moisture in the soil, so lots of the trees that bloom, their flowers that grow, these are generally the ones that happens to earlier because they got access to water. The change in daylight times starts to sort of impact on the plants, and the plants start to produce their leaves. Because they've got access to water, they're able to start photosynthesizing, producing sugars and food and all of that for the plant necessary for their reproduction. But the leaves are the first to come. So the kudus know that, and they are moving along the river drainage looking for the new shoots off of these plants. Quite selective as well, similar to the impala, except they're exclusively browsers, and their very tall neck enables them to reach quite high into the vegetation. Eric, yes, we do. There's actually a number of evergreen trees in shot at the moment. The one just in front of the kudu there. Oh, we'll bring it back to this one just here. There's one in front of us here. This is the gwari. This one is the magic gwari here. And then these have leaves all the time. The magic gwari. And they're indications of water, but in fact they actually grow where there's water, so they always have leaves. And then off to the left we've got a leadwood, which has generally got leaves all the time. They do go through a sort of period where they do shed some of the leaves and then regrow them again. So if that is necessarily evergreen, maybe it isn't. But essentially any of the trees here that has access to water all the time will have evergreen sort of nature to them. But if Seb pans off to the left-hand side to an area that is showing some beautiful sun at the moment, you'll notice that majority of the trees in picture are leafless, and that is because they are not evergreen due to the fact that they do not have access to water. And the reason being, if the trees had leaves on without access to water, it would be like running a pump dry. If any of you ever worked with a pump, a water pump, and you run it and there's no water in it, it will end up burning out, and essentially that's what will happen. The trees, if they keep leaves on but don't have access to water, will end up giving away the final amounts of necessary water within them to complete any bodily processes they might need. And so hence they drop the leaves so as to sustain themselves until next season. So generally the trees on the top of the slopes are waiting for the rainfall and the rise of the water table, and then they will start to shoot out their leaves and then finally their flowers. And a beautiful afternoon indeed here in Djuma in the Sabi Sands with that beautiful sun setting. You can still see the clouds. The breeze is just a mild one coming from the west, southish, southwest, which is generally where, or southeast I mean, my bad, southeast where some of our weather does come from. We've been experiencing a little bit of a rainy spell down in the southern parts of South Africa, moving up from the Cape. No doubt we're hitting just the back end of that. Arizona lady, no moringa trees here. I think moringa trees are indigenous to India, if I'm not mistaken, but they are regarded now as a really powerful medicinal plant and a beautiful superfood as well. And it is the talk of the town in the permaculture circles about moringa and the powder produced by the seeds, which is, I haven't delved too deep into it all, but they are used for all sorts of healing properties. And they're going for quite a good value at the moment, and they're quite easy to grow, quite easy to propagate, and they do grow all over. Well, most parts of South Africa they will grow, and they are doing very, very well, as I said, in the permaculture circles, the sustainable agriculture circles. Maybe everybody should grow one. The medicinal value of plants in the wilderness and out in nature is magnificent.
How fast it's moving.
Beautiful cloud formation. Any of you remember being a child and lying on the grass and trying to identify shapes in the clouds? Seb does, he remembers. Megan sees a scorpion. Well, what do you see, Seb?
A dragon.
Yeah, a dragon. I saw almost like a velociraptor or something with a long tail, really big feet for a raptor, and then a very small hands. So, well, it's changing. It's amazing the power of imagination, though. Imagination is a very, very special thing. Or we have spotted the lesser spotted Tristan Dix driving past as we are enjoying the sunset. I wonder how his search for the elusive Hosanna has been. Are we going to look at him? I don't know if we are. There he is. How are you guys doing?
Not well.
Not well.
No, I can't find a leopard and I just ripped my jacket again.
You ripped your jacket and you can't find a leopard.
I have a war wound.
Tristan has a war wound. He has gaffer taped his arm. Well, we can't see because it's black.
Oh, oopsie. Hello, Sebastian.
Hey, Seb. Also,
Yes,
And there is
my
our
jacket for the
very,
fourth
very
time
famous editor, Faith.
That's the most famous editor.
Director, I'm sorry, I am confused. We're looking at such a magnificent sun. I'm getting very confused. And Faith is busy with our Instagram takeover, so she's taking some wonderful shots of all the leopards Tristan has found this afternoon. And the world famous Davisito on the back, who has just arrived back from a short spell of leave.
That's why he's looking so fresh.
He's looking very, very fresh. Looking very fresh.
All right, gentlemen.
Nice
Have
to
fun
see you
now.
all. We'll see you soon. Which way are you headed? Okay. Go find those elephants. We'll go find a leopard this way. We'll let you know in 5 minutes. Okay, cheers guys. Fantastic. So Faith all the way from Kenya, spending time with us down here for the TV show. She is a wonderful, wonderful personality, and looking forward to seeing her version of the Instagram takeover. All the staff are taking over on the weekends. Adds a bit of spice and interest, and well, things are changing. We are moving that way, and we're going to go over to someone you haven't seen in a very long time for an update.
Yes, you haven't seen me for ages, all of 1 second, really, and you're now with me. So, yes, Faith is with me. She is on Instagram highlights, also showing her the wonders of South Africa, which, there we go, there's Faith. Well, the wonders of South Africa, which I have not shown her much at all. I don't know what's going on, is that I just can't seem to find anything this afternoon, but hopefully this is going to change our luck. We're going to find an elephant, and then once I found the elephants, then I'm going to find a leopard. That's what I'm going to throw out there. I need a change of luck, because I'm very sad about my jacket. I just want to show you guys what it's come to on my right hand side. And so for all of you that are thinking about coming on safari, it's dangerous, perilous work doing this job. So here we have war wound number 1. So that's the gaffer tape holding that wound together. This is war wound number 2. Now this one is a big one. It's about the whole size of that particular piece of gaffer tape. What's happened there, I'm not quite sure. This one is also quite big. Then if we scroll over, we've got this one, which was following Hosanna the other day, and a buffalo thorn caught me on the side. Then there's the one on top over here, which was also, I think, Hosanna or hyenas, I can't even remember. It was a leopard or hyena that I was following. I think it was that ripped this on here. And then on the back, well, I don't know what happened there. David, don't stop laughing at me. This is not funny. So the right side of your body when driving, and when you are in an open vehicle like this, be very careful if you're sitting on the right. This is what I'm trying to point out, is that there is a safety hazard here as well. So luckily my jacket took the flak and not me, but I'm safe to say that I think this jacket is going to be retired fairly soon, because soon I'm going to just be more holes and gaffer tape than I am going to be a jacket itself. But I like this jacket. This jacket's nice. It's comfortable and warm. So I'm very sad about it. I need a leopard to lift my spirits right now, because this is nonsense. How dare my jacket get ripped? One day I hope that they're going to come up with something. Viam and I have discussed this, that we want to get a bubble, a force field bubble that is around us, that we can drive in, and it's impervious to rain, wind, UV rays and thorns. And that means that when we drive out here, we can see through it completely. You won't notice that this force field is there and that there is any sign of anything protecting us. But imagine, no rain covers, we could drive in the rain and it would just hit around us, but the force field would be so strong that when the rain hits, it basically is like hitting a hot iron. It just goes away straight away. So it doesn't actually affect our field of view at all, and you know, we wouldn't have to worry about anything really. So that's what I would hope for. Somebody out there that's very clever. David, would you like that? You would love it, yes. And then my jacket would stay safe, and we wouldn't get dust on the camera, David. Exactly. David's nodding. He's like, yes, no dust on the camera is a good thing. All right, I've got that off my chest. Now it's time for a leopard. Exactly, so I believe a lot of you are very impressed with the uses of gaffer tape. Well, I promise you now, gaffer tape was not something that I knew about very well until I started at Wild Earth, but since I've been here, if there's ever a problem, we'll just gaffer tape it together. There really isn't any other way, and we just literally take the tape and kind of wrap up everything. I think we even fixed a car the other day using the stuff, which is pretty ridiculous, but it does happen. So You know, it's one of those things, but I feel like we've done good work. Eventually, though, I'm going to have to tape my entire body on this right-hand side because there's just feathers falling out everywhere, and I'm pretty sure Hassan is going to follow up thinking that there's a dead bird that he can go and pilfer at this stage, because I just leaked feathers all over the place over the past few weeks. Anyway, it is what it is. I'm going to have to buy a new jacket now. What's that in the water over there? Hang on a second. I see something. It's an Egyptian goose, because it's quite deep into Twin Dams. David, is that an Egyptian goose? It looks like an Egyptian goose. Maybe. I just saw something milling about. Yes, it is an Egyptian goose. It looked smaller than normal because it's kind of quite far into the water, but it is indeed an Egyptian goose. Now, the elephants that were seen were apparently moving in this direction towards this way, and so I thought maybe they'd come for an afternoon drink. They're not here, which means I'm going to go quickly onto Gowrie Main. There's some green pigeons calling behind me as well, so I'm going to head on to Gowrie Main just to quickly see if they haven't crossed that side. Also be a good place just to double check Hosanna hasn't gone over, and then if failing all of that, well, then I don't know. Then we're just going to have to try and we'll ask Faith what she thinks where there's going to be a leopard. I might also check Janet. Let's go check Janet Jackson's house quickly, because I saw Janet Jackson this morning. Well, I think it's Janet Jackson this morning. We saw it not far from the dam here, running in that direction. So I want to go check if Janet Jackson is home. Let's go do that, and then Gowrie Main for the elephants, and then a leopard on the way home. Sound good? Perfect, David. Rosalind, the most dangerous snake that we have here is Jake. No, I'm just joking. So Jake is one of our staff members, and we call him Jake the Snake. And I don't know why it came about. James named him Jake the Snake, and then that morphed into Slung, which is Afrikaans for snake. And so Jake from America is now nicknamed Slung. It just happens, guys. These things are how nicknames come. I'm not quite sure. It's probably because there was a wrestler called Jake the Snake. I don't know if anybody remembers that. There was a snake wrestler called Jake the Snake, and I don't know how long ago it was, but there was. Anyway, that's not the question really. Let's just get to what we're actually talking about. Sorry, I digress massively today. The most dangerous snake we have out here is a black mamba. By far, it is a potent venom that it has got, normally mixed in with a little bit of aggression if it's cornered. I mean, it's got a bad reputation that everyone thinks it's just going to chase you and kill you and maim you at every opportunity it can get. That's not the truth. A black mamba will rather try to get away, but if it's cornered, it certainly is not going to back down, and you will not want to get hit by one of those. It gets big, it gets nasty, it's got serious venom, and is enough to kill many people with one drop. So anyway, that's pretty much the most dangerous. There are others that bite more people because of their ability to lie in wait. So the puff adder probably hits more people than anything else. And then you've also got a couple other dangerous snakes in the form of the cobras. So there are a few cobras around that are quite nasty too, particularly the Mozambique spitting cobra and the snouted cobra as well in this area. That also is quite dangerous, but definitely the black mamba, hands down, the most dangerous of them all. Right, Janet Jackson's house coming up on the left. This is the Hollywood tour. Please keep all hands inside the vehicle. No flashes when going past. She's a no flash cat. Well, Janet, should I say, not a cat. So please just make sure that you just stay silent and observe, and if we're lucky, she'll pose for a photo with you. Sometimes she likes to do it. It depends on how busy her day has been and how many people she's obliged already at this point of the day. But here we go. On the left hand side, beautifully built architecture in the form of a dead leadwood. It is a well designed house. It's got a north face, which means that it does get a bit of sun both in the morning and the afternoon, and is a perfect spot. The electricity pole doesn't sound very good, does it, David? This is electrical buzzing coming from the poles to our left, which is never ideal. But no Janet Jackson, I'm afraid. She has decided to maybe, just maybe, have a bit of a break from us. Maybe somebody else visited her already today and she's done her thing. Okay, well, we're going to go and look for these elephants and a leopard, and in the meantime, let's send you back across to Steve, who has now found himself another kudu, but this one has horns.
Yes, indeed. Earlier you saw probably a 1-year-old kudu, that male, with a very small horns. And here we've got a mature adult who is with his head in an evergreen hairy guarri, it seems, busy feeding. It's an enormously tannin-rich plant. We've tried many times to eat them, and unbelievable what it does to your tongue. Very, very bitter, but I suppose this time of year the kudu is doing what they can to get the nourishment out of the vegetation that they can get. And the guarris are all good for tummy complaints and any sort of ailment you might have in your intestine. And look at those really big horns that are obviously used for fighting, primarily for fighting. I have seen a kudu using it to actually pull down a branch of a tree, which then it broke. Poofy poof, most of the birds that you see following these herbivores are oxpeckers that you find on the body, but then off to the right, who is just gone, he might come back again. You quite often also find fork-tailed drongos following them through the vegetation as they chase away insects that are camouflaged on the branches or on the grass. But then also cattle egrets have been known to follow herbivores. I've never in my life, should I say, I'm trying to think if I've seen cattle egrets following kudu. I can't recall, but they do follow many of the other animals, including elephants. So, I mean, eating the guarri, there's the fork-tailed drongo just above his head. You just saw him dart into picture a moment before. So it's very interesting that an animal would choose to eat an enormously tannin-rich plant, because the tannins are in themselves undigestible because they bind to the protein within the belly of the vegetation, but there might be other properties, the astringent ability that they have. Astringent meaning that they help to, with capillaries, there could be wounds to be healed, help to sort of contract cell tissue within inside the body, and can also lead to essentially helping with constipation or even alleviating diarrhea. Either way, I don't know if this kudu's got any diarrhea, but he has not stopped eating the guarri itself. Even be known to help with toothache. Maybe he's got a little bit of a sore tooth. Jen, they reckon one twist, it takes about 1.5 years to get to one twist, and then slowly but surely the second twist, but it's very hard to really get. I know that Dr. Owen Davies has sent me a sort of an analysis on how to age the kudu, and I'm still wrapping my head around it. To see it exactly when you see these kudus, to see exactly where and what the age might be, dependent on the spirals. But a fully mature adult is on 3 turns, and he's on his 3rd turn at the moment. So I would say he's almost there. He's just waiting for that last bit at the top just to turn outwards. And he'll be fully mature. He is with another individual here, and kudus are mature at the age of 7. 7 is a good age for a kudu, and that's quite a long age out here when you consider the amount of marauding lions that there are. And by the time he's reached that sort of age, well, then he's in his prime, and he deserves to pass on his genetic traits, his genetic ability to survive in the African wilderness, because to have horns that big and run through the vegetation, which is the home of the kudu, you need to be very strong and powerful. And also to compete against males of equal size. Here's some Cokie Franklins in the background, and a Swanson's spur fowl. Just listen to them. Very nice angle there of the horns. The sun is just set in the background behind us. And, you know, most of the time you'll see an animal feeding on a plant, a herbivore that is, feeding on a tree, and they'll move off after a period of time because those plants have the ability to... Look how dry his mouth was. Did you see that, Seb? His mouth was very dry
from all the tannin. You often see them feeding on a plant for a period of time and then moving off, because apparently these plants have the ability to increase the tannin that they have within them once they're being attacked. But the guarri plants that we have are constantly full of tannin. That's one of the reasons they can stay evergreen. They don't need to lose any leaves. Nothing really eats them. Tannin's expensive to produce, so you're not going to put it in a leaf that's going to fall off every 6 months. You're going to leave it on a plant that... Is there alarm calls happening there? We might go check it out in a second. Leave it on a plant that the tannin's going to stay there. And so this kudu's not too bothered because he's feeding on a plant that he knows is tannin rich. But I'm so surprised that for the last 3, maybe 4 minutes, he has not stopped feeding on it, and his friend has come to join him on a similar plant towards the back. And I think it is the same species. It looks to be... It does look to be the same plant. So maybe they've had a bit of a rough weekend, or maybe they're preparing for a rough weekend and they're just trying to get their tummy ready for the party that no doubt will be unfolding in front of them. Magnificent individuals they are. Rush is back after about 3-4 months. You start seeing this little shoot coming out the top of the head, and then it's quite noticeable after 4 or 5 months. You can quite easily see it. And then that individual we saw earlier was probably about 6 months old or so. They already started that sort of first initial sort of turn on the horn. So yeah, from quite an early age. You see that with the impala as well. There's the fork-tailed drongo just off to the right of him there, Seb. He's using the kudu to flush. He's going, come on, guys, move away from this bush. You've already flushed all the insects you possibly could flush. Now move a little bit on so that you can flush some more insects. Lots of insects that are still surviving are very camouflaged, and the fork-tailed drongo is an amazing specialist, amazing opportunist, should I say, in his ability to capitalize on others. Sometimes it's without disturbing the others, and sometimes they just blatantly steal the food of others by mimicking certain alarm calls and sending certain mongoose-like species scurrying off into their burrows, while he then flies down and enjoys the prize that has been secured by the foraging mammal. So that is proper intelligence. And I am still amazed that this kudu is still enjoying his meal. Let's see if we can get a look at his mouth again, Seb. He was busy chewing. Here we go. Let's see if we can look at the saliva in there. Oh, look at that liquid. Come on, do it again, buddy. You know when you get that really parched mouth and the sort of the saliva sticks. He's doing it more. He's really enjoying it. Well, the tannin is a form of defense for the plant. It's to avoid it, or help it avoid getting eaten. This plant is probably going to bed this evening going, what is the story here? I have a lot of tannin and yet I still got munched for a very long period of time. Very, very interesting. I've seen browsing animals feed on tannin-rich plants for a brief period of time, just to sort of supplement something in their diet, maybe some medicinal value that they haven't got. Let's see what's he going to do. He's heard something. He's saying, what? Tannin? What's that? What a beautiful face. Absolutely gorgeous. A very powerful neck. You can see how it's bulging. The kudu horns and the head of the kudu are enormously heavy. And if you pick it up, very, very powerful, very strong. And for him to hold his head up high like that the entire time requires some serious neck muscles. And that in itself is his daily dose of gym as he prepares for the fighting with other kudus. And when you do see kudus fighting, well, it is a battle of the giants, being probably the second largest antelope species here. But anyway, let's go over to Tristan, see if he's had any luck with those elephants.
No, Steve, I don't know what's going on today. Apparently when animals go to Mamba Road, they grow a set of wings and then they fly from there, because both The elephants and Hosanna have just vanished, gone, no sign, not here anymore. So I don't know what's going on, but it's, I can tell you, a little annoying actually. So I don't know who saw these elephants or what the story was, but I've found no signs on Leadwood Road crossing south. Can't find anything on Mamba, so maybe somebody got the road names confused. Is it possible? Maybe? I don't know. Seems like it. Because there's definitely nothing that I can see at the moment when it comes to a rather large grey animal that runs around. Well, it doesn't run around, it plods around. Do elephants plod or do they run? I don't know, maybe plodding. Plodding's a better word. What do you think, David? You like plod? Yes, plodding suits an elephant, I think. Although I think plod suits a hippo more than anything, actually. I like the way that hippos walk around. It's like they just kind of labor along as though it's all very much too much effort to actually walk. It's quite funny. I enjoy watching them do their thing. Now, Ellies, where are you? So still no tracks on this side. They must, and there's nothing gone to Twin Dams. They must just be in the block here somewhere. That's what I keep saying about Hosanna too. But so far, nothing. You know what we can look at, David? Now that I'm kind of, something's behind me and I looked back at you. I need to turn slightly because the moon looks quite nice with the dead tree here. It's a bit high, unfortunately, but it'll still be quite nice. There we go, there's a dead tree. And then right in the distance on top is a moon that is not full, but is, I suppose, quite big still. There it is. Look at that. Very pretty, isn't it? I think it's pretty. Looks nice to me. It's close to full moon. Didn't we just have full moon? I can't even remember the days anymore. We had a blood moon recently. Was that a month ago? Can't have been. David? Can't remember either. But that moon looks very big and full. And the fact that it's arising at the time that it is means that it is full moon coming up. Can you believe that? Now, sorry, the camera's just having a little moment to itself. It's okay, don't worry, camera. My jacket's also had a moment today. Hosanna's had a moment. The Ellies have had a moment. So it's okay that the camera has a moment. It's one of those afternoons, isn't it, David? Rather today than tomorrow morning. Yes, let's get it all out now. Isn't that pretty? I think so. I mean, you know, it's obviously we see it every single day. There's a moon. It comes up and it comes up all around the world. But I think it's quite nice just to sometimes stop and appreciate it, particularly when the animals are giving you the runaround. At least you can rely on the moon to save one's afternoon. Good. All right, David. Let's go find these elephants. The Google says, so Google says full moon on the 26th. Do you know what, Megan? That's in 2 days' time. For real. Yes, exactly. So Megan has just radioed that to me because obviously the feed from here is slightly delayed, so she hadn't heard me say it yet. But 2 days' time, guys, full moon, so we'll have a look out for it. Now, in 2 days' time, because I've been having a hard time this afternoon, what we need is in 2 days' time is to have a leopard in a tree. Now, which tree, I'm not quite sure yet. I'm still thinking of maybe the one at Djuma Dam, which I spoke about, or Gowrie Dam that I spoke about the other day. That tree with the full moon rising behind it. Think that's possible to organize, David? Okay, good. So David's going to be on it, everybody. It's David's fault if in 2 days' time we don't see a leopard in a tree with the full moon behind it. Just so you all know, if you want somebody to blame, it's David's fault. He said he'll organize it, so he better do it. Now you've set yourself up, David. You've set yourself up, I think, for failure, I'm afraid, because if you get that, that is something I've been searching for 10 years. So if you do... What's that?
Have faith.
Have faith, yes. Well, I have faith. She's on the back, exactly. We're so witty, David, aren't we? We're funny guys. This is what happens when you don't have many animals for the afternoon, is you start delving into corny little jokes. Most definitely, Jagged. Predator's success rate under full moon conditions does go down. It's much brighter, much easier to see a predator, and you just, with your own eyes, if you go out in a full moon out here in the bush and you go out in new moon, you'll realize how much more you see under a full moon condition. So definitely predators, I think, have a harder time of it during the full moon period. It's not to say that they can't hunt and don't successfully hunt. I mean, obviously they do. It happens every month, twice. For 2 weeks it's kind of quite bright out here. So, you know, they've got to be able to still find food, and they regularly hunt during that period and do get success, but so are they successful during the day sometimes as well. But definitely not as easy as a new moon or a very cloudy, overcast evening. The best for a predator is a stormy, overcast, cloudy, thick cloud new moon with lots of wind and rain. Then a predator is lethal in that, because you can imagine how disorientating it is for all the prey animals when you've got that kind of blowing around and sound of rain, and it's just really not easy to know what's going on, and the predators take full advantage in those conditions. It's going to be an interesting night because the clouds are kind of separating out now, so theoretically supposed to have a nice clear day tomorrow, but it's very cool, and so I'm thinking tomorrow morning David's blankies for us and hot water bottles because it's going to be cold otherwise. Poofy poof, are there any animals that are coordinated with the moon? Here in the Sabi Sands, not that I know of. I might be wrong actually, there might be something, but I can't think of anything off the bat. There's been a tough day at the office, and the brain feels like pudding at the moment. So, not that I can think of. Maybe Steve knows of something. Steve often has these weird and wonderful facts about plants and things that maybe are dependent on the moon. But not that I can think of. I might be wrong, and there might be, and I'm just kind of completely missing it, but not that I know of, I'm afraid. Or that I can think of. Maybe I do know of something, and Steve will say it, and I'll be like, that's right. That's exactly what it is, but I can't recall anything right now. Okay, right. So far, there's a diker, David. Ooh, celebration. Hold on, people. Hold on to your hats. There's action. No, it's run away. Of course it has. No, it's still there. Well done, David. You found it. There we go. There's a diker. Now, where's Hosanna? Generally, where there's one of these, we can find, although these days there are so many dikers around. I don't know what's happened. It feels like the explosion of the population, because literally every single game drive we are seeing 3, 4, 5, 6, even more of these guys. You look at the dam cam at night and it feels like 40 of them roam through that area, and even though Hosanna is thinning the population one by one, there still seems to be quite a few of them around, and maybe it's just because of the dry conditions, the grass has died back, that we can see them so easily. Anyway, that one's disappearing off into the drainage. It's decided it doesn't want to be our friend, which is not nice. Right, oh, there we go. There's a good ray of sunshine on a gloomy day. It sounds like the Mara is back up and running and the storm has passed, and David has once again stayed with his lions, and I think they are still on a zebra.
Scott came back earlier than me because the area he was, the rain subsided. The area me and Big James are, it continued pounding, but these two youngsters here of lions were not worried a minute. They braved the rain, they slept, they did not do much, but we had to bring down all our flaps. We apologize for having, disappeared, but you can see what these two youngsters have done is to relocate their kill. So where this one is, James, if you pan a little bit in front of it, you can see part of the flesh. James, if you go the other way, yeah, you see the red on the right, James? Yes, that's originally where the kill was. And one that is feeding now has dragged it from where he is feeding from. So we have braved the rain. It's still spitting, but it's not like before. And I told James we have to get the courage. The lions are doing it, why can't we do it? So once it is stopped, thank you very much. And Megan in final control says they can hear the spitting of the rain falling on the canvas of our car. And you can see this boy is not worried of the rain and it's time to feed. So he continues turning around the zebra, and I would guess what he wants is to reach the very soft fillet inside this zeb, or what used to be a zebra. And they brought it down early this morning. And I'm very convinced these two males will stay here overnight. because not far from where they're feeding from, there's about 100 or 150 meters or so, or odds, there's a pool of water, some natural spring. So chances are, if they got the food and they got the water, they have no reason to move elsewhere. So the dark area you see there is where we had fires coming through from Tanzania. We're quite a distance from Tanzania, but the fires originally came from the Serengeti National Park in Tanzania, coming all the way to the Masai Mara Triangle. So this one had eaten enough, so just laying down. So all what James is showing you is what do I call it, the damage of the fire? Karen, you are 100% right. These guys are youngsters, but they look massive. And you can tell how strong and good looking they are. Looking at their hindquarters. So that one just licking at his paws, having eaten the better part of the day. And Karen, I agree with you, they look massive. In the background there, James, you can see some lapwings just walking. You see that burnt area there? There's some two little birds just walking around. And those are the watered lapwings. And they are enjoying, once the rains fall, so many insects will be coming out of the ground. And this particular one is devouring the zebra. And to it, rain does not matter. As I said earlier, the rain is not as heavy as it was before. It's just spitting. But he's just enjoying his meal. I was talking to Brent earlier, and this zebra had gone drinking near where these lions were. And in the process, when it saw the lions, moved backwards, and then I think it tripped and fell in a hole and hit its head so badly. And I think it got some concussions. And the two lions took the advantage of that and like, wow, lucky we got some meal. Because where we are, we got so many wildebeest and very few zebras. I would have wondered why they zeroed in on the zebra. But from what Brent explained to me early this morning, is this zebra was just unlucky. As you can see there, the lions blend in very well with the grass. So as a flash, what should happen? If the males do the job, out of my experience, they do not allow the females to eat first. And there's always a very clear-cut understanding between them that once the males do the job, they have to eat first. But unfortunately, it is the reverse. When the females, bring a prey down, and they'll always allow the males to eat first. And especially if we get the dominant male, if we get the big boys, these are just two youngsters. And the other day we saw the two with another big male that we call Kipuli. They always hang out as a coalition of three. We don't know where Kipuli is today. And in general, the females always do the job of bringing down, the prey. But once they do that, the females always allow the males to do. But sometimes they don't even have to allow them. They just get in, get crushed, and the females will always give way. So once the males have eaten enough, then the females will come in later. But when the males do the job, out of my experience, they eat to the full, and if the female will be around, they'll allow them in. Once in a while, maybe I would guess, if you get females maybe with young ones, like, these two eating here, they might allow, if they're cubs, and maybe they know the females that are nursing need to be very, fed, because they know if they'll have sired the cubs, they'll allow the females maybe to eat shortly after they got a few mouthful of the zebra or the wildebeest or whatever they might have brought down. Hello, mister. Are you just licking yourself after having some nice meal? The first vultures we saw were quite a distance from where we are. And we might be getting some info or something about leaves with Steve Ovo all the way in South Africa.
Well, the reality of it is that that kudu was still feeding on the hairy guarri leaves. So I have tasted these before. You've if you've been watching the show, you will remember that I have tasted these before. So I'm going to see if there's something going on with these evergreen tannin-filled leaves now that hasn't been going on before. Because that kudu was still feeding on those leaves when we left. Seb, do you want one?
No.
Seb doesn't want one.
No.
Okay. So the hairy guarri, it's not easy to see in this light, but if we're in infrared, of course, so you can't see it now, but
I can switch back.
that's fine. It doesn't matter. There's little brown hairs. Okay, maybe little brown hairs just underneath the leaf, which make it quite easy to differentiate between.
Just put it more by the dashboard, please.
Sorry, Seb. Obviously, I forgot about the focus point. You can't see it very clearly. There's little fine red hairs underneath the leaf. I'm holding two of them here. The magic guarri is just a clear leaf without any hairs. It's not the right sort of light to be seeing that in now, but we are now going to see what exactly benefit the kudu was getting out of these now. So let's go back to the money shot of me eating these lovely leaves. So if it's got tannin in it, now remember, the tip of your tongue is where you taste the bitterness. I chatted with Sydney and I realized how he got around the bitterness. He takes a leaf, he shoves it in his mouth at the back, and then he swallows. That's the trick. Front of the mouth is where the bitterness is. I don't think I'm missing much. I don't know what's going on with the kudu. Let me do another one. Let me just double check. It's not as lingering as it used to be. Yeah, it's there. We're still there. We're still very bitter. So the bitterness and the tannin inside there, the polyphenols in the plant. Polyphenols are often where all the medicinals come from, and what we're looking for in organic medicinal plants is the polyphenols, and the more polyphenols there are, the more medicinal value there is, and that's often why strongly medicinal plants are quite bitter. And what the polyphenols do is they make the mouth go dry, because they sort of just move the saliva away. It's very, very strange why it does that, but the purpose of the plant to do it is to prevent the animal wanting to eat it. Because if something makes your mouth very dry, it means you've got to drink more, which means you've got to walk to the watering hole more, which means you've got to encounter leopards and lions and predators along the way even more. So it's not a good idea. Whether they know it's not very digestible is another question. But it is the plant's defense mechanism. So animals kind of feel it, they taste it, and they go, nah, I'm not going to eat that, thanks. Poofy poof, I'm trying to think if there's any plants used for cooking. We have got a lovely jackalberry up here on the right, which is a very famous tree for the royal lineage of Tingana and Hosana himself. You can make brandy out of the fruits, and you can eat the fruits themselves. But what you can cook out of that, I am not sure. I'm not too sure how many plants here we can cook and eat. I normally just eat them green and raw, the vegetarian way. But I'm going to give that a proper think about what plants are cooked and eaten. Not many of them are cooked and eaten for medicinal value, that's for sure. But I'm going to think. There are definitely wild and indigenous vegetables on the African continent, and I'm not sure how many of them occur down in southern Africa. Because when you look at the sort of domestication of vegetables across the world, they all happened in certain areas, sort of in the subtropics of the continent. So the tropics, subtropics. We are kind of subtropical Africa, but there's very wild down here. I don't think there's any indigenous wild plants for cooking that weren't brought from the north. I might be incorrect in saying that. There might be. There's a couple local spinaches and things, but you go further north up to the Central Africa, there's so many wild vegetables and indigenous vegetables up there. It's absolutely ridiculous, but not too many that I know of down here in the south. Anyway, okay, well, we're checking the watering holes. You've just come past Vuyatela Pan. We're going to go check on Gallagher Pan to see what is around. But in the meantime, let's go and see how Tristan is getting along.
Well,
we haven't found anything, Steve. It's been fruitless. No sign of those elephants. Not even a track crossing Mamba like I was told. And so now I'm mobile north up the Mulwati along Tandi, Tlalamba, Hosana, Tingana's favorite route, in the hope that one of our last minute leopards pops out somewhere here. It's right where I left Tlalamba yesterday, or where she went into the drainage is exactly where we are right now. So unless Tandi fetched her last night, she theoretically should be somewhere in this area. I did scan here this morning with the thermal. We did take the drone here this morning on our rehearsal to try and kind of find anything. We didn't find any sign, but you never know. You know, it's difficult to say. I mean, it depends on the leopard. Some seem to be more successful than others. It depends on also how many times they chase things. In Hosana's case, his hunting success rate is probably very low because he chases ridiculous amounts of animals, even things that are probably not even viable in terms of actually being able to hunt and actually being able to kill. I mean, he chases scrub hares all the time, and so his percentage would be much lower than somebody maybe like Tandi, who's far more calculating and far more kind of experienced and really tries hard to make sure that she's only hunting things that are worth actually going after. So, you know, she's maybe got a higher success rate. It's difficult though, but they reckon on average 30% of the hunts that they actually commit, they are getting sustenance from. So when you think about that, it's not a lot. And a lot of energy expended for the amount of food that they get. It's why they take every opportunity they can, even if they have a time of plenty where they're really on a kill, they will kill again. And the Mara is the perfect kind of display of that, is that they kill all the time just because they don't know when the next meal is going to come, and they just keep themselves as full as possible. Now, talking about the Mara, David has some successful cats of his own that have managed to find themselves a meal, and we hope that our leopards will follow suit this evening somewhere on Djuma.
Well, Tristan, I know you have done the best you could, and I respect you on how you spot leopards. Our not spotted cats are still on their kill, and these two boys told me, like, come tomorrow, this zebra will be divulged almost to zero, because if they got it this morning, and I think 50 or 60% of it is almost gone. 50-60% of it is almost gone. And if anything would interfere with this party here, would be the hyenas, and maybe not one hyena, talking of a clan or group of 5, 10, but 1, 2 would not bother these ones. This particular one, I think, is so full, and he decided just to have a nap there and trying to get warm after being rained on. And what most cats will do once they're rained on, they'll always stand up and just shake their whole body and get the water or any wetness in them out. That's basically what they will do, and then go right back where they were. You notice now we're in infrared, just making sure we do not interfere with this cat feeding. Sorry, Megan, I missed the whole of that question. Principal, I'll tell you, the fires that came here, I would say a month and a half or so ago, until maybe 2 weeks ago, what normally happens, because these fires are normally set in a national park called Serengeti in Tanzania, but Serengeti National Park and the Mara Triangle, they do not have boundaries. Of course, on paper we have a boundary, but nothing marked that would stop the fire, and there's no fire break between these two game reserves. So what would happen, the fire would come across, and when we talk to our friends, you know, the causes or why they do the fires, they'll say a few reasons. Number one, the fire helps to kill all the ticks or the mites, any parasite you might see. 1, 2, it burns all the grass that's not very nutritious, so that when it rains, we get fresh grass that sprout up. So what I would say, to me, the second one is more of a reasonable or more logical reason than the first one. and we have seen one terrain. It turns out to be beautiful green. James might try to show you the dark part maybe beyond the lions there. Once it rains, it's beautifully green. You see that dark part there? It usually comes out very green, and this one will attract most herbivores. I'm talking of the Thompson gazelle, they stick here, and maybe also the wildebeest will stay here a bit longer. This lion is just enjoying his time feeding, and I got a feeling this lion might stay here the whole night. There's water not very far from here, and I would guess these are just two youngsters who could be two brothers. Wonderful, just seeing him eating there in the savannah. And I would say it has been a very, very wonderful afternoon, and what nice game drive, you know, out here in the Mara and also in Juma in South Africa. And we are so grateful for all of you viewers. You give us so much joy when you watch us, bringing you this wonderful wilderness from Africa. And we thank you, and we would request you to join us again tomorrow morning for another exciting safari, Central African time, 6:30 and 7:30 here. And from all of us, thank you and have a good one.